systems are offline.
Hello, Facebook. Hello, everybody out there. How you doing? It is Tuesday after the bank holiday weekend. Hope you're all doing great. A little bit of sad news. We don't have the pubs open yet, but look, we're going to do the best we can. We're going to try and keep you entertained for the next sort of hour or so with a huge hero of mine, a man who I used to fall asleep when they didn't have wireless headphones, nearly choking myself trying to listen to his radio station back in the day. Red FM and Victor Barry with Cork Talks back. All right, Fiend, all them boys, all them years ago, texting in with the boys in the Honda Civics driving around the place, wanting to text in and see what the story is, finding out where the cheap petrol is and all that type of jazz. But yeah, this is an absolute pleasure. He's been so sound in doing this with us. We're going to talk. We're going to find out what he's been doing off radio. If you have any questions, you can always ask him. You know how you do it at this stage, guys. You just write a comment underneath it. You can say hello to him. You can do whatever you want. He's a fairly nice guy. Just don't swear at him because he doesn't like swearing too much. I'm only messing. He does. He loves swearing. It's a second language. But yeah, so let's try and get this underway as best we can. So here we go. If I press this button, we should see him.
Hey,
Mr.
what's
Victor
going on?
Barry. How
What's
are you,
happening?
sir?
Good. What do you mean a fairly nice guy? That was a bit ominous. Fairly nice. But anyway, how are you, Terrence?
I'm all right, brother. And yourself?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thanks for having me on.
Jesus, man. Thank you for doing it. It's a much bigger pleasure for mine than you just coming on. Trust me. You're looking all Hollywood there now. You look like them proper YouTubers with the blue light in the background. And the
You have to,
fade.
yeah, and I've like a salt lamp over there, so you have to have the whole orange and kind of blue, orange and teal vibe. So yeah, it's the stereotypical YouTube requirement: blue lights, salt lamps, and yeah, a mortgage worth of gear. But anyway.
So that's what you've been doing. You're on YouTube now and stuff like that.
Yeah, I suppose I joined a company coming up on 6 years ago called Teamwork, which is a Cork company. Their software company. One of the co-founders is from your neck of the woods, actually, Peter Coppinger down in Bantry. So software company, kind of, project management, help desk, stuff like that. And I head up the video team there. So we have the absolutely horrible job of flying around the world doing customer testimonials, which is really, really
straining.
It is, honest to God, people are like, oh, that's great. When you're out in Abu Dhabi in like 500-degree heat and there's cameras melting, you're like, yeah, this is great. Yeah, so that's just one small part of the job at Teamwork. We do everything from kind of brand videos, sizzles, tutorial content, basically any of the video content that comes out of Teamwork kind of will come from the creative video team. So yeah, I'm kind of there in October, 6 years, really kind of a huge Cork success story. The two founders had Entrepreneur of the Year not so long ago. And yeah, everybody from Netflix, eBay to Johnny's local butcher shop is kind of counted as a customer. So that's where I kind of went after I kind of took a break from radio, well, from Red and just kind of wind down. I left in February-ish and 2014 and kind of ended up in Teamwork in October. And that was it. As it were. But I've always made YouTube videos, and kind of over the last couple of years, I kind of gravitated back towards YouTube videos. I mean, anyone that would have followed me on Red we've always made YouTube videos. I've always made videos as a kid. So video was always the first love, as it were. So it was just a kind of a natural progression that this happened. And then I went back making YouTube videos because people said, you kind of, I'm sure people are familiar with Casey Neistat. And I suppose the story, as I always say, is that a couple of years ago, I watched one of his videos. I was like, I used to do that kind of stuff, but it wasn't as good. It was really bad. And this was me wandering around the radio station. It was vlogging, but vlogs didn't exist. I didn't know. We just called them Viccasts or Vic Podcasts or whatever. And I just went back and I started doing them, and they were really, really bad. And then kind of, over the last...
There was a couple of toilet incidents, wasn't there?
Yeah. I mean, we were obsessed with filming at the toilet for some reason, But if you go back and you look at these videos, we never went into the gents. We always come out of the women's toilets, just for absolute and utter pure and utter devilment, But we used to they were good fun, They were kind of the first video branding, I guess, that the radio station would have had. Nobody else was kind of doing that kind of thing at the time. They were completely stupid. Emer, who was the producer, in fairness, she used to just go for it and it's just, yeah, whatever, we'd make it up on the spot. And I was just good fun. But then over the last couple of years, it kind of, went all in on YouTube because I need a creative outlet all the time, rightly or wrongly. And yeah, so we're kind of just hit 2 million views in the YouTube channel today.
Oh,
I think it's coming up to 7,500 subscribers. So it's ticking away. It keeps me kind of
just
sane.
ticking away, like.
Yeah, it's just ticking away.
Just sure look.
Yeah, just it'll do for now, But so that's me. So that's kind of what I'm at now.
Yeah, I have 3 subscribers to my YouTube station, so yeah, I've got quite a few bit to go yet. We'll get there.
Yeah, everybody starts at 0, dude.
They do.
Everybody starts at 0.
Yeah, the first subscriber is the hardest subscriber, so they say. With all these fancy people.
Yeah, I think with YouTube is like the first 100, the first 1,000. You'd spend an inordinate amount of time trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and then from there it starts snowballing. So you'll go from 1,000 to 5,000 relatively quickly, and you'll go from 5 to 10 quicker again. And YouTube is very much about what the algorithm wants. And if the algorithm gets that from a content creator, then it will push you and push you and push you, through the roof. And you're probably one video away from a life-changing moment. So I'd say never kind of give up for people who are into it. But it's all about watch time for YouTube. So as long as people are kept on the platform watching video after video, that's why you watch one video and then it's like 3 days later and there's blood pouring out of your eyes and you're like, this algorithm Skynet stuff is pretty good that they can keep you there, So that's what it's all about. It's about, they reward the creators for keeping viewers on the platform essentially. And it's trying to figure that out. And there's no, short and fast. It's just a grind and it's just, the strive to get better every single time. And, for anyone that is doing a YouTube channel, you are doing a ton of stuff. You are creating a thumbnail, trying to get people to click. You are trying to write a decent title and description to get the curiosity going. And then you're trying to make a video that's going to keep people there at least for 50% of the video and keep them there. And then when people are dropping comments, you need to reply to comments because the more comments that come in and the conversation that goes, the Skynet robots are going, oh, okay, there's something going on here. We need to push this out a little bit. So, it's crazy, but it's fun.
It is fun. I've seen quite a few. I did go down the wormhole. All right. I found your very first vlog. I found the 3 before it. You have a very patient wife. I will give you that. A very, very patient wife.
She left about 4 years ago, but she's kind of still here in body, but everything else is gone, I'd say, at this stage. Yeah. I mean, it is something that we discussed before I ever kind of started it. And now I guess, the kids and she's in it a lot less than what they would have ever been as you kind of start finding your voice. And, building an audience,
Just finding your foothold and stuff like that. You find out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Try everything to get it there, like.
Yeah, and that's essentially how you grow it, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I didn't know. We got another question. You're a huge, huge Star Wars fan. How'd you get into Star Wars?
I kind of got into it as a kid. And funnily enough, the first success I had in YouTube was 2 Star Wars videos, which have, 200,000-300,000 views. And the easy thing would have been to just do Star Wars videos, but it kind of wasn't me. Huge Star Wars fan until The Last Jedi came about, and then that ruined it for me, to be honest. Absolutely ruined it.
That was my next question. Are you still a hater on The Last Jedi?
Yeah, I haven't watched it since I kind of watched it at the press screening and watched it when it came on, home release, and it completely destroyed Star Wars because I'm somebody that you go all in on something. So you'd buy the books, the T-shirts, the toys, the statues. I only for The Last Jedi, I probably would have had a full Star Wars tattoo sleeve by now. But Ryan Johnson and company absolutely took a big dump on top of all of that. So I could just get YouTube tattoos now. And
just like that, boom. Your love for Star Wars is gone.
Yeah, it's gone. It is really gone, to be honest.
It's one genre of movie I never got into. I can safely say my uncle was a huge Star Wars fan.
It's been fun here, turns anyway. I gotta go. Yeah.
Good looking, thanks, Slán. Yeah, no, I was my uncle a huge. I got to fix my camera because my camera's falling. I was a huge. No, I wasn't, but my uncle was a huge Star Wars fan. I never got into it. He took me to see Episode 1, and I liked that. And
Yeah,
then it's just like, just give me two fellas fighting. I would much rather see two fellas getting pucked in the head than all this CGI stuff. You know, I just even like I love the old James Bond movies where you can actually kind of see the guys, although they're not punching each other, and it's really, really bad. I'd find that much more enjoyable than two fellas scaling a skyscraper and then kicking the shit into each other halfway up there. And you know it's animation. Like if you want to watch animation, I would start again. Animation. I still can't say that word. Animation. You watch Toy Story or something like that. Do you know what I mean? This CGI stuff is ruining movies. It's like the Marvel movies and all that. It just can't get into it, man.
Yeah, I kind of fell out of love with movies completely. I ran a website, themoviebit.com, for a good 5 or 6 years, and you know, got the opportunity to interview everybody from Tom Cruise to some of the cast of Star Wars, which was great. But by the end, you just get tired of it. And you know, I could not tell you the last time I went to see something in the cinema that didn't involve bringing the kids. I couldn't tell you the last movie I watched on the TV here. Like generally, they put me to sleep, so I'm like out for the count after 10 minutes.
But you used like, see, we're gonna have to do this again. You used like all the Japanese movie, the anime movies, didn't you? You're a follower of that.
I got into Akira and stuff like when I was in, I don't know, first year, way back when. And then you start, you know, there's tentacles and there's all kinds of weird stuff, and you're like, okay, this is. No, it's not for me. No, it's done.
Parts of bodies were just coming out of everywhere.
Yeah, it's just like I'd appreciate the culture of it more so than the movie. But you know, I know it's a big thing for a lot of people, whether it's the Akira stuff, whether it's the Gundam stuff, whatever. It's just I actually don't like the animation style. I always. I don't know, it takes me back to looking at cheaply made cartoons when I was a kid. That's what some of them look like, even though they're spectacular, gargantuan productions. But yeah, not for me anymore.
It's maturing, Vic. That's what it is.
Yeah. Like the majority of my stuff that I watch is on YouTube. I'll sit down for an hour every night and I'll go through YouTube videos from the same 3 or 4 creators and just rinse and repeat.
And that's it. I go, how do they do that? How do they do this? How do they? Yeah, and that's it. You break down the videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, more or less. You know, like it's way too easy to follow. You know, those Skynet robots keep you there watching. You know, I just one more video. It's grand. One more video.
6 hours later, and you're like, Jesus, where did the whole day go? Like,
yeah, I know, but sure, look,
a problem.
You know,
it's their job to do that, though.
Oh, completely, and that's why their bank balance is bigger than mine and yours combined. Well, maybe mine anyway. I don't know.
Well, that's not definitely mine. Like I said, I said to Stevie. Stevie was like, we did a podcast with him last week. It was great. He was having it on, and he was like, "Jesus, your background looks very nice and professional and everything." And I said, "Come here, Stevie." I said, "It's 2 uplighters and a set of curtains from a charity shop." Yeah. I said, that's what my background looks like. I said, I'm putting no professionalism into this at all. I was going to call it the Broke Ass Podcast at one stage because I was refusing to put money into it. And I was trying to see how far I could get without putting money into it.
Okay.
And just see what I could use because I had most of the gear anyway because I'm a DJ anyway. But I was trying to see exactly what I could get and see how far I could get without putting a penny into it. So if anyone ever asks me, do you spend a lot of money on gear?
Yeah.
I do. But it's for my other job. Like I've spent literally zero. My subscription to StreamYard is the only thing I have to pay for the podcast.
Okay.
And that's like $21 a month. And everything else I've either borrowed from people that have been kind enough to probably forget that they've given it to me, or else I've robbed. Like I did see again, this is my father. My father's the biggest cheapskate ever. He won't be watching this, so it'll be all right. But he kind of the mentality where if it can't be fixed with gaffer tape or cable ties, it's broken. But I remember looking online, they're all like, all these videos, you can go look at all these cool YouTube creators, and they're like, you must get this fancy light. You must get the lighting all nice and shiny and make sure it's right and there's no shadows on your face and stuff like that. So I went down because I own a pub as well, and I took the dartboard light off the pub. And it was too bright, so I got a load of an old DJ trick, a load of what's it called? Baking
parchment paper and
parchment baking paper, yeah. And I just layered it until I got the right level, and I sellotaped it around it, and away I went. And this is what it is.
Yeah, if it works, man. You know, that's the thing. Nobody knows. If it looks good, it looks good. That's it.
that's it. And I got 2 uplighters that we're using, and that's it. I just put on pink. It's the best way to go. So now it's nothing like, and I've got a wire or a webcam that I use. I have no professional cameras or nothing. It's literally just a webcam that was given to me by someone who I do a small bit of advertising for. So again,
Okay.
I should have really called it the Broke Ass Podcast rather than the Cabin Fever Podcast.
If it works, it works.
That's it, man. That's it. And like I always say, you can do these type of interviews either on the toilet. Once they have a set of headphones, I'm fairly happy with people when they come on. Just need a set of headphones. I'm very simple.
Awesome.
So that's how the whole thing started was because I was bored. As simple as.
Okay.
I was bored and just decided, you know what, we need to do something. And like I said, a DJ by trade, and I wanted to always see what radio was like. So I went off and started an online radio station. And then we just started having guests on every week and talking. And I said, you know what? We're getting pretty good listeners. We're getting about 2,500 listeners a weekend. So I was DJing Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. And we're getting 2,500 listeners a weekend, which was fantastic for where I was doing it from, literally my upstairs attic. And there's no shelf life on it, you know? And that's the problem. I think, like we were discussing beforehand, that radio's dead. There's no major shelf life on it.
Yeah, I mean, I've come from that broadcast background. Radio kind of is, look, radio's a generational thing, ultimately. Your parents will still listen to the radio. My parents will still listen to the radio. I haven't listened to the radio in 6 years. Honestly, walked out the door and I never turned on a radio since. I have my car radio tuned to AM, some weird AM station that's just static. So if I do get into the car, I don't have to listen to the radio while the phone connects to Bluetooth. Not to take away from people who do work in radio. There are some incredibly talented people behind the scenes. There are a handful of really good broadcasters that do it well, but it's kind of on the, I know the
decline.
General R figures and the BAI will say, independent radio listening is up and it's up and it's up and it's up. That's fine. But, just because it's up doesn't necessarily mean from a generational growth perspective. I don't know anybody under, we'll say between the ages of 18 and 25 or 30. I can't wait to listen to the radio. They might have it on in the job if we're depending where they are. But they're on Spotify, they're on podcasts, they're Deezer, they're YouTube Music, they're wherever, It's the old thing of they want to listen to what they want to listen to when and where they want to. They don't want to sit there waiting for, the next song to come on rotation on a playlist that might be there 4 times in, 8 hours. But it has its place. It's had its place. Like there's a lot of radio stations are not scrambling, but they are trying to stay relevant between video content, social content, and it's kind of turning into a social numbers thing, But there are still people who do a very good job. But where will they be in 10 or 15 years?
I don't even think it'll last that long.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't think. I think radio 10 years. I'd give it, to be honest, because like as you said, it's slowly getting polluted.
Yeah, I mean, it has to reinvent itself, and it's combating, like, all the listen again stuff is quite good. Like the BBC led that for years and years and years, where you could listen to any radio show that you wanted to whenever or wherever you did. RTE eventually kind of brought that on. When I was in Red, we had the capacity to kind of, dump stuff on a server for people could download it. We didn't have that streaming capability. We had an internal mechanism to listen back to shows, which is a kind of a requirement. Maybe it's changed since, but there's a requirement that you'd go back and you could listen to like 3 months of shows, just in case somebody decided, oh, well, he said this and I'm going to sue, or, and then the broadcasting authority going, well, we want this date, the audio from this time on this date, and so on. But it is good, but it has to reinvent itself. And, I'd hate to see some really talented people will just be a byproduct of the whole lot imploding. I don't think it's going to implode tomorrow. 10 years is probably an interesting estimate. Like you'd always, from a radio perspective, you'd always see what the Australians are doing, because the Aussies are way, way ahead from just like the whole programming side of things, the way shows are done, the Aussies are like 5-10 years ahead of everybody else. The majority of all the great radio competitions, they've all been stolen from Australian radio, you know.
Yeah.
And some markets in the States on the East Coast and the West Coast are kind of, you know, ahead of the game, as it were. But there's very kind of little, as I said, I haven't listened to radio in 6 years, so I couldn't tell you who's good or who's not. I just know who has been there.
Yeah.
You know, so it is kind of a struggle. It needs to reinvent itself, but I don't think it can because of the onslaught of available content now, that people can literally get on their phone within seconds. You know, you can't really fight that, you know. So you know, if you look at Heart Radio, for example, which is this huge network, they're a podcast network now as well. You know, where for anyone that has a podcast, you can get listed on Heart Radio as part of their RSS feeds and stuff like that. So that's maybe one option that you know. But again, if you look at the States, the whole podcast network industry is ginormous. Look at Joe Rogan,
100 million.
Spotify. You know, but if you look at smaller podcasts, they're all snapped up by various networks and they're all operating under one umbrella. And you know, if they're happy to do that, great. You know, so you wonder where can radio get in that on the generational thing. But like when you know, folks who are listening to radio now, when they pass on, what's left? Where's it going to go then? You know, my kids will never listen to the radio. You know,
I don't think mine will either.
Do you know what I mean? Simply because it whether or not it's going to be there or not, it's probably not going to be the thing that they'll do, you know, in the same way now that, you know, I'll fire up Spotify. If I want to hear music, I'll fire up Spotify. You know, if you know, there's a new Westlife track. I know what you're on. It's like, but where are you going to go? Are you going to go, oh, Jesus, the Westlife track, I'll put on a request there and I'm going to wait 4 hours, you know, for Johnny and Ballinlough. This one especially to Johnny and Ballinlough. Here's the brand new single from Westlife. And you're like, you've waited so bloody long for it to come on the radio. They already have another album out, like, you know. So you hear that, sure, you know, any band worth their salt are going to link to Spotify or wherever their streaming service is, whether that's Tidal or whatever. They're not going to, you know, say, well, wait there for the next 8 hours for a playlist to rotate and we'll be on it.
Yeah, no, I'd say you're right. You know, it's this whole in demand. We want things right now. We need things right now is coming to the forte. And I think people are using that. And I genuinely think that radio is just going to be one of the things that goes away. Honestly.
Yeah. You know, probably the biggest example really is when you see the likes of Sky offering Netflix.
Yeah.
That's it. Do you know what I mean?
That's it. So, even Sky is starting to struggle.
Yeah. And Sky have their own on-demand service, and they've had it for a long time, and it's worked quite well. But I cannot remember the last time, and I don't really watch TV that much anymore, but I can't remember the last time it was like, oh, another hour to go for the show. You know, that's going to be on there. It doesn't work like that anymore, you know? So when you have the likes of Sky offering Netflix, you know, does a radio station offer kind of some local subscription and offer a Spotify? You know, you can get Spotify and Sky, you know? So it's what you want, when you want, where you want, and I don't think radio can compete with that. You know?
We've got Patrick Ahern coming in, and he says Ireland are miles behind everything in radio. Dab radio is so poor, and the one thing I listen to is RT Gold. Copy and paste it when it comes to every other radio station. Yes, I would agree. There's a couple of good DJs over on RT Gold. There's some really good DJs there, but they're old school. They are the old school boys. Like you've got who's over there now? He was on the Drive Show on 2FM.
Is Ricochet not still there? I haven't spoken to Rick in a while.
Rick is still on that. I think he still does that. I've actually heard, do you know who's, speaking of Dab Radio, do you know who went in big in Dab Radio was Dusty Rhodes. Do you remember him?
Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty went into the Dab Radio, didn't he? He started setting up Dab Radio in Ireland, and it didn't take
Dusty had his whole production studio, you know, and just whole voiceover stuff. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but the amount of VO stuff and VO work that he used to and the content he used to churn through is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But,
he was a great voice, like.
Dusty was Atlantic 252, you know. If you think of Atlantic 252, it's Dusty Rhodes, you know.
He had that American style sort of, do you know what I mean? He had that kind of grr in his voice. He was fantastic. And what was it? The 2FM Beat on the Street with the Mr. 7 Up guy. Remember him?
Yeah.
What was he called?
Electric
was
Eddie, was it? No.
I didn't have a clue what his name was.
Mickey Mack was the other guy that used to be big and beat in the street.
Yeah, beating the street. All them years ago when radio used to come out to people and say hello to them.
Yeah,
not so much anymore.
The outside broadcast thing was fun. Like technically, there's a lot of moving parts to it, you know. But you know, it was. I've done a couple of different bits of outside broadcast stuff, and it's fine. It's grand. Like it's a good opportunity to have a bit of crack with people, kind of face to face. But it's like technically there's kind of there's a lot of moving parts to it. You know, what was the highest there that RTE had? Was it the Roadcaster? Is it still called the Roadcaster?
Yeah, 2FM Roadcaster is still there. Yeah,
yeah, and they did a really good job of. They did a good job of branding that word. It was a big deal, you know. It was like getting your name in the paper. Oh, cheers, the Roadcaster's coming to town, you know. But
I remember the Muscle Fair. They used to come down to the Muscle Fair down here in Bantry when we had the Muscle Fair going. They used to come down here on the Sunday every year, and it'd be that massive, big, fucking black juggernaut of a thing. And they used to have that little gold 2FM with the heart in the middle of it. The DJs used to come down just to fire out loads of stuff on the street and sweets for the kids and T-shirts and everything. And the golden era, huh?
Yeah, and literally that's what got people, you know, to buy in. I got a T-shirt. Couldn't tell you any of the names of the presenters, but I got a T-shirt. I'm going to listen to them forever, you know. And that was back when there was little choice or there was no choice. You know, it was either you listen to Gay Byrne in the morning, or you had 2FM in the evening. You know, there was very little back then, and even now there's a bit of choice there, but you know, it depends what kind of choice you're into, really. You know,
Patrick came along and said it was Electric Eddie. He was one of the big lads.
Electric Eddie, yeah, that was the one. That was
Electric
Eddie,
and he's also given us the great news that RTE are cutting RTE Gold as well.
Oh, okay. So, thanks for that, Patrick. Pleasure as always.
That's the last hope for DJs is RTE Gold. Is kind of that pasture that's out there for them, like, you know.
You know, when you were put out there, you're going to die. Basically, that's it. You know.
That was it. That was it. Now you're a bit of a gamer as well. I see that you like games as well, PlayStation and stuff.
Yeah, there's always a PlayStation in the house. I don't know why I don't have the time to play it. The kids kind of use it quite a bit. Probably the last game I played to completion was the Amazing Spider-Man, the last Spider-Man one. So I'm one of these people that gets caught up in the hype, or I'm looking at too many websites and you see the same. I'm like, I'm ready to buy Ghost of Tsushima, but I know I'll never play it, and it'll just sit there, you know, gathering dust. Like, so, and I'll probably buy PlayStation 5 when it comes out, simply because I'm one of these idiots that, why not? You just get caught up in the hype, you know. But I was a big gamer as a kid, absolutely huge. And we even did a kind of a gaming segment on the radio years ago, and I did a section on the old blog as well called The Gaming Bit, and I very quickly learned that gaming nerds are ferocious. So if there's one iota of
detail wrong,
it's like it's all over. I stopped that. But yeah, always as a kid, Spectrum 48K. I know I'm showing my age now. Some of you might have the Commodore 64. And then the big one for me was the Amiga 500. That's where I kind of learned, got a real creative flair for kind of digital stuff. So like the early days of Deluxe Paint, where it was the Photoshop of its time, essentially, when there was no such thing as Photoshop, but it allowed us to, you know, cut our heads off with a photograph and stick it onto a Star Wars picture or whatever, and then print it out in a black and white printer, and the house would be stinking of this god awful ink for like days.
It's like burning hair or burning skin.
It was kind of crazy. But now I kind of play games with the kids. My son's a huge Fortnite fan. Pretty sure we own shares in Epic Games at this stage.
Did you buy?
It's an amazing business. Every time, I'm like, does it make you a better player? No, but why do you want it? I'm just too old.
That's another thing that bugs me. I'm really one of them all-time gamers, like, and I love Grand Theft Auto. That's my big thing. I've completed all of them, and I have all of them going back to like GTA 1 on the PlayStation and all the connections in London 19. It's big, just that's my genre. I don't like Fortnite, and I was a huge FIFA fan until like the last 5 of them, that they just. I just didn't like getting my ass kicked by a 6-year-old over in Japan on pro game that had like every single professional player. I was stuck with like Stunstop United or something like that with like half a star.
Yeah.
It was
Oh, hang on.
There's
We're
just
gone. Are we gone? All right, you're
we
there.
back? And we're
Yeah,
back.
we're back. We're back.
We're back. We're back live. But yeah, I hated that, and I hate that the way kids, especially, and I do.
We're gone again. We're gone again.
I,
Hang on. We're
we've
gone
got
again.
thunder and lightning down here in Bantry, so hang on a second. It
There's
could
an
be that.
excuse for everything. There's an excuse for everything. Oh, there's a high pressure system rolling in. Yeah, when some fella's
It's
after
live.
knocking over a switch, you know, it's like, yeah,
The cow is after kicking the broadband mast up here. That's probably the problem.
it's like it's a radio playbook really of excuses. You know, there's a whole list of stuff when it's the presenter has screwed it up entirely. I'm talking from experience.
Press the wrong button. Clearly.
Like for the talk show, we used to have a delay, right? So you'd be 8 seconds ahead. So if somebody came on and they'd throw something in that was really libel or racist, or you know, if somebody just said, I don't know, something just for the sake of it and it was nothing to do with the conversation, you'd press this dump button and it would dump the last seconds of audio. So if you were driving around or you're listening at home, it would sound like a car crash because you're like, what the hell? He just said, you couldn't understand. But it's a legal requirement to kind of have this running. And we'd get so into the show at times, especially where at night, that we'd never dump anything. We'd keep going. And then you're like, there's a program director going, you haven't taken an ad break there for an hour. You're supposed to take 3 ad breaks an hour. So by the end of the show, and we did this far more times than I'll ever admit, we would play like about 2 or 3 hours worth of ad breaks. So we'd have about 9 ad breaks go out at the end of the show, just so we wouldn't
get in trouble.
Well, we did get in trouble for doing it, but we used to way too much. But the thing is, the delay, the dump button, it needs to ramp up and it needs to ramp down. So it's not like an instant thing. So when it's building up, you're only supposed to build it up or turn it off when you're talking, because it changes the pitch continuously. So essentially it's changing the pitch bit by bit to get ahead. So the ads would sound horrendous because, you know, I don't know, $4.99 they'd be up and down and there'd be people losing their mind. But sure, we had a good show, so we didn't care. Like, be driving home and you're like, geez, there's still ad breaks playing. What have we done? You know? So that was the thing with the delay. There was always that kind of thing. It was a big problem because you'd forget to turn it on at the start of the show. When you were doing an intro, we were talking, you'd forget to do it. And then you're doing it during the song, and that Westlife song sounds like it's just crazy, you know.
Trying to beat match Westlife songs, that's something.
Yeah. The less said about that, the better, I think.
Now, you did have quite a few hairy characters on the radio station over the years. Any of them stick to mind?
I've kind of forgotten most of them, thankfully. But there's one I'm kind of reminded about regularly enough on the callers. Funnily enough, this woman was from West Cork. I forget now what part. And she was just telling, God only knows what we were talking about. But she did have this story. She goes, I don't need any man. I have my dog, you know? And I was like, oh, an animal lover. Like, there's a lot of people who say, geez, you know, animals or dogs are better than humans or whatnot. And she's like, I have my dog, Victor. And sure, you know what? You know about the dogs, Victor, don't you? I'm like, no, what? She goes, they have a tongue. And I'm like, right. And it registered on me. And I was like, we're not dumping this. We're just going to leave it in. And it was just kind of, you know, that was one person that really stood out. We had another guy another night that just hurled abuse. Because the whole north side, south side thing is, you know, and this guy just hurled abuse constantly. And, you know, I suppose in radio, if you give somebody enough rope, they're going to hang themselves. So we just left this guy go and go and go because, you know, there's no point shutting him down because he's creating good radio by having these dumb opinions, you know. But he kind of fired his anger towards me at the time, towards the end, and I told him to F off at the very end. And you know, that was another guy that just literally, you know, was a lunatic, but great at the same time, you know. was just really, really good. So these kind of guys kind of stand out, you know.
Kind of playing with fire.
Yeah, are just, there's always a couple of lunatics that would just come on from nowhere. They'd spout rubbish, or they'd spout something liable for the sake of liable, and it was just one of those kind of things. But you have to kind of take it in your stride as well. Like when we were in morning, there was a guy came on one morning, and like we got in so much trouble over this one. There was a guy come on and he just started, nice guy, just a bit of banter back and forth. Um, and sure, he goes, "Oh, sure, I present what you're doing there, boy." And I was like, "All right, sure, off you go." And I said, "The mic is all yours." And I walked out of the studio, and I always remember the program director looking at me, going, "He's not on the delay," and he's standing up inside in his office, and your man then rebroadcast 96, who was the competitor at the time.
Oh,
So yeah, there was a scramble to get back in. No, it was hilarious at the time, in one sense. Do you know what I mean? But everybody lost their freaking mind over this.
oh shit!
And
He
it's
queued
something
you up for it.
completely like just knocked me right out of the park. But it was a moment. Do you know what I mean? It was a moment that got people talking. It was just one of those things. That was another character. But I think I suppose we kind of facilitated the keyboard warriors of the day, as it were. Facebook was relative in its infancy and stuff like that, so people could pick up the phone and
Mhm.
if you said your name was John from Ballinlough, we had no way of proving that. Do you know what I mean? Um, like we would take a name and a number. That was always the thing. And from some more of the serious stuff, um, you know, if the guards had to get involved or whatever, you had names and numbers. You had to have always call somebody back. You'd never put somebody live on the air. You'd always call them
Yeah,
back because the producer would kind of get some sense if there were
a
a
lunatic.
liability or not, or the number that they gave you was legit. Because a lot of people just ring up and think they'll go straight on the air,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then they
yeah,
can say
yeah.
what they want, and you're like, I should have put on that delay, shouldn't I? Where's my dump button?
Shit, I
Um,
forgot to press play at the start.
yeah, but yeah, it was all about kind of creating moments. We some very good characters. Not all were bad. There was we had some very good characters in the sense that they turned their lives around. From different addictions, drugs, alcohol. And there's times where you go, this person is a character, but they're spilling their heart out to you.
Yeah,
And from as a presenter, your job is to make that sound as good as possible, because you want people ultimately to stay listening. And if they were surveyed by the JNLR the following day, which I've never met anybody that's ever been surveyed by them because the sample size is so small, but you want them to think, oh, I listened to X last night,
yeah.
and I listened, for whatever period of time. So I suppose over the years, it's those kinds of characters more so stood out. Obviously, we were kind of known for the head cases and the lunatics, but I think the
You
people
got
who
heavy
suffered
at times. Like in fairness, there was some heavy times there. Like, cause like I said, I used to listen to it before I go to bed because I was only a young fella,
yeah,
and I was before wireless headphones and stuff like that, where you still had to have a cable connected to it. I used to have my radio above my head and the cable coming down. How I didn't hang myself, excuse the language, watching and falling asleep while listening to it, like being tied up
yeah.
in cables and stuff like that.
I mean, it did. I suppose get heavy. A lot of the mental health stuff did get heavy. Probably one of the heaviest points it got is that producer came on. So there was a two-way system. He could talk to me, or
Mm-hmm.
he could just type stuff up on the screen. So I'd see Johnny's on line one, or whatever, kind of working
The
in
private
tandem
chat
with the
type thing.
phone.
Yeah,
Yeah, kind of. But it was just Notepad, and we'd VNC from one computer into the other.
technology
So,
back in the day.
yeah, we're just a step behind the carrier pigeon, but it worked. And I
Yeah,
always
yeah.
remember he just ran into the studio and he goes, right, we're in an ad break. He goes, there's a guy on line one. This is his name. He reckons he's going to kill himself, and he wants to talk to you.
Fuck.
And you're kind of going, oh, great radio, great. Okay, let's put
Yeah.
him on. But then, that's the one thing where I suppose that's always the thing that, Jerry Ryan had a couple of similar instances over
Hmm.
the years, or Howard Stern or whatever. And that's the kind of thing that you'd always hope that you can get into in one sense, because it's great radio.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of thinking like that. But as this guy came on, I'm thinking, okay, this is great radio. But I'm like,
Shit.
in one sense, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this guy says he wants to kill himself, as in right now kind of thing. And it's not like we were talking him down off of somewhere. But he was on for whatever, 45 minutes, an hour. And I remember thinking at the time going, your life is theoretically, or his life is theoretically in your hands here, because this is a very fine thing. And we have ambulance crews ringing up, and, it just went kind of bananas, in the sense that anybody in the medical field was like, this is some clown on the radio, i.e. me.
Yeah, completely unpracticed in all of this, and he's yeah.
And I suppose we had done so much stuff with mental health. I had some experience. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was just the thing that in the end we had a conversation, and that was it. And like, we did get a blazing letter in from one of the mental health boards at the time, but going, this was really irresponsible. But at the same time, it was, handled very, very well, and blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah. And, there was a kind of a glowing, I don't know, acknowledgement. What I did was a good job, So I've kind of wondered what happened to him. But it was just one of those things where characters can be good and characters can be bad. And I suppose then on the other side of it, you do get characters who will try and exploit a situation. We had a couple of people who just wanted money, and they had a very well rehearsed sob story that we would have fell for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get a phone call going, this person was on Jerry Ryan 2 years ago
Doing the same thing.
Mm. And so you get all kind of types of characters that are willing to do anything. And then at the same time, you get good people. We had a guy years ago, and he's serious drug problem. He was trying to stay clean. He's like, I owe 600 quid to a drug dealer. They're going to, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to get away from it. And essentially we kind of facilitated the callers. It's not like, I say, here's 600 quid, off you go, Johnny, you'll be fine. But people rang up and said, look, I'll give a tenner. Kids rang up and go, I'll give my pocket money. And there was one guy who said, I'll give him the 600 quid. I'll be out in the radio station at whatever time. And very nice guy, came out. We did it all off the air, because it just wasn't one of those things, the way the guy was.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, great radio, but we're like, hang on, we're genuinely trying to help this guy here.
Yeah.
And about a week later, your man rang up and said, again, just rang the station, said, here, is that money gone, is it? And we're like, yeah, why? Because I'm after writing off my van at the time. Do you know what I mean? So that's the other, like, oh my God. So that's the kind of the other side of it. But yeah, there's lots of different characters, and for the best part, we had really good experiences with all of them, even the majority of the bad ones. Do you know what I mean? Because people can only be so full of BS for so long, and you can eventually kind of wear it out of them. Not even catch them out, but wear them out to the fact that you'd almost turn them around. Do you know what I mean? Not necessarily their viewpoint, but you can change contextually how they are. You can kind of calm them down a lot more. So a lot of people are literally out of the traps, and they get exhausted very quickly. And then, you can give someone enough rope, and they just keep going, and it just makes the presenter's job easier, But it's how you handle them ultimately. At the end of the day, it differs between the good presenter and the bad presenter. But I think, we used to try and have a lot of fun. So anytime there was ever a big competition on, every show would get a slice of it. So there'd be a dedicated slot. And we had, I think at the time, we had 6 lines going into the station. So obviously, if it's a free holiday or if it's free whatever, like 6 lines just go like, so you can't get a notes. You just can't get an outside line. So producers like, I just can't get an outside line to ring someone back. And we're like, okay. So what we started to do is we would go to an ad break. So you'd line up the calls during the ad break or a song. So, they'd get whatever, there are 2 callers that they needed or 3, but then you go, you'd have to take another ad break trying to clear the lines. But we started actually answering the calls during the ad breaks. But we'd put on some stupid accent. They'd be like, the big one that we used to do was like, we found a garage in Pontefract in Yorkshire. So we'd come up and like, hello, Pontefract Tires, love. How can I help you? Like, I'm ringing the after the competition. It's Victor the Odyssey. I want to win the Honda. No, love, you're after ringing a garage in Pontefract in Yorkshire. I got it. I can do your tires now, lovey. And you just have fun. And
Yeah.
For other people, like, I want to win me holiday. Come here, Josh Hagen tires. But yeah, it was all about having a bit of fun too, and I think once you take the fun out of anything as well, it starts to get stale pretty quickly,
Yeah, it starts to get boring rather quickly. I will. You have a phrase, your gas phrase. I was looking at one of your podcasts, one of your YouTube video, your gas gear See, I can't even talk tonight. What is wrong with me? I can't even talk. Gear accusation syndrome.
Gear acquisition syndrome.
Acquisition. See, Jesus, Terrence. My God.
Yeah,
this has happened to me lately. I don't know.
I got to give Liam Griffin out in SPG a shout out for that. That was kind of one of Liam's kind of big phrases. Essentially, you know what it is. There's something new comes out. Oh, I'll have that. Do you know what I mean? I'll buy that, or I'll save for that, or how can I get that? And it's just something, the amount of crap I've bought over the years, and it's never used, I remember we were in New York last year to shoot a testimonial around the time the GoPro Hero 8 came out. And I'm like, I'll buy that. And because a lot of GoPro videos had done very well for me on YouTube. And I'm like, it's $400 or whatever. I'll make that back through. So it's an investment into the channel.
Trying to convince yourself it's an investment is the best conversation you'll ever have with yourself.
I don't know. I haven't made the money back now. Anyway, I think I've made about 2 or 3 GoPro Hero 8 videos. So it's literally sitting on a shelf next to the GoPro Hero 7 and next to the GoPro Hero 5, next to the other 5 or 6 cameras. But yeah, it's just one of those things, I'm just a gear nerd for camera stuff predominantly. I'm sure
that brings us on to your new love of your life, your Sony.
Yeah, I've always kind of been a Sony shooter, and I suppose a lot of traction on Sony's EV1 videos a couple of months ago. So I said, okay, it's an investment into the channel. I generally kind of, from a vlogging perspective, if I'm out and about, I prefer a small camera. Mm-hmm. Not because you look like an idiot with a big one, but because a big one has a couple of more moving parts. You might have a couple of different lenses. It's heavier to carry. So, you need, I'm just trying to look here. I don't even know where it's, see, it's probably gone next to that GoPro.
Already?
Yeah. So this is the Sony ZV-1. So it's a small camera. It literally does fit in your pocket. We'll say versus something like this.
Like that. Yeah.
With the Sony 6600. My wife is currently looking at this going, right, how much was that now? So I'm just going to get a checklist. How much did all that cost? Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. So, like, there's another Sony camera coming out, which is probably the divorce one. So that's another one. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I'm just surrounded by gear. Like, with teamwork in the professional world, we're kind of operating on the big camera that we have is a Panasonic S1H, which is if you wanted to make a documentary for Netflix, it's on Netflix approved cameras. So it's a big camera.
That's a big camera.
It weighs a ton. Do you know what I mean? And we'd already have a heavy enough gear going without adding to this. But yeah, like I like the way Sony looks. I like, I know they get crap for their menus, but I like the color science of the cameras. I like the feel of them. I like the image quality out of them. I was a huge Canon fan for years. Started out with a 450D, went up to a 600D, and they were fine. I just like the look of the Sony stuff. Anyway, do you know what? You're not a YouTuber without a blue light, a salt lamp, and a bloody Sony camera. So it's just part of the course.
You just have to do it. It's an investment.
Yeah, the first ever camera that I bought specifically for the YouTube channel was a Sony RX100 Mark V, which is similar to that. Cost like 1,200 quid. Told nobody the price because it's like, sure, that's probably about 200 quid, the size of it, But it was an incredible camera. I still kind of have it. I'd still use it as a C camera, possibly if I needed to do an overhead shot or something that I'm doing here. But again, it just fits into the pocket. Same with the iPhone. Like I did go down a route of shooting video with iPhone for the vlogs quite a bit. Again, I'd buy the iPhone because should make the money back on YouTube with that, and you loop like 500 videos in it, and you'd never do it. I just don't like the look of video directly out of the phone. But it is convenient to edit. Literally, you can make a video from start to finish on your phone if you
just
want
use iMovie.
Yeah,
you can throw it into iMovie and do it as you're coming home from shooting. You know what I mean? If you want to throw something up quickly, like
I went down like a pat with the iPad Pro for editing with LumaFusion, which is fine if you're out and about. It's one less thing to carry. You don't have to drag a laptop or whatever, and it works very, very well. And I kind of worked with LumaFusion there recently enough where they reached out after 1 or 2 videos. And it's an amazing app on the iPad. So you don't need the big desktop, you know. You don't need the big kind of $4 or $5 grand laptop to do stuff.
So you're in the paid partnership YouTube section now.
Yeah, I like before they ever introduced this 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours of watch time, you could just get approved like that. I'm on YouTube, I think, since 2006. So you just automatically you would got, you know, a couple of quid for every couple of thousand views or whatever. But everybody's rate is different. Like if you're a finance channel, for example, you could be getting anywhere between $5 and $55 per 1,000 views. You know, if you're something else, like if you're a gaming channel, because it's so saturated, you know, like you could have a gaming channel, I could have a finance channel, we could both have 1 million views, I'd have the Lambo and you'd have a bike.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but like for a lot of YouTubers, they make different, you know, they have multiple revenue streams. So whether they're selling presets, whether they're selling merchandise, like I don't know how many people are familiar with Logan Paul, but like 3 million, I think, in 3 days on just a new merch drop, which is crazy money, you know, absolutely insane money.
And he's fairly new to it too, though. Like he's like new to a certain degree. Like
historically speaking, he's new. Historically speaking, he would have come from Vine, and I think, you know, he did come back from the Japanese suicide forest thing quite well.
Start fighting then, though.
yeah, you know, that's the other side of it. But if you look, like, he's a revenue generating machine, you know, and I think whatever about his brother, I think he seems to be a good guy at heart, you know.
I don't. Do I like? Look, they are only what they are going to be in front of the cameras.
Yeah, I mean, I used to watch him all the time years ago. I genuinely enjoyed watching his stuff, but I just kind of fell out of it. Do you know what I mean? And I rarely watch him now. But, you know, these guys built empires, you know, out of just being them.
Yeah.
Which, you know, whether you like the guy or hate the guy, I know a lot of people
have to appreciate what he did. Yeah.
You have to appreciate, and he's a clever dude. He is a clever dude. There's a reason he's got what he has, and a lot of other people don't. Yep. So I think it's very easy to sit in your glass case and be, you know, he's this, that, and the other. But if you go like for like, he's a very clever dude. Like a lot of the guys at the top, in the top 5% of YouTube, they get a very special rate as well from advertisers and that. So they're, you know, they're crushing it. They're not at the top without they're not at the top without a reason. Regardless of what you think of them. Like.
I had a buddy of mine. Well, he's not a buddy of mine. He is. To be fair to him, we got quite close with him. Randy Santel. He's a professional eater. When I had a restaurant, he came.
Yeah, I know the guy.
When he came over,
dude, shaved head, bald head. Yeah.
No, just big. Right. Randy Santel Atlas. Like he does the 3-2-1 and does the big pose like this.
Yeah.
He's a good buddy of mine. We have loads of chats online and stuff like that. And I sort of told him I was doing this at Christmas time. And he came over to my restaurant and he ate the 6-pound steak we had and a 6-pound burger, 2 in the one day. So he had 12 pounds of food in the one day. Like, the guy is an absolute tank. But he just joined the 1 million club, which is the 1 million followers on YouTube, which is a phenomenal feat, to be fair to him. And I just said, look, is there money to be made in YouTube, or how do you do this or how do you do that? And like, he sort of said, look, this is what I've done this month. And I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, but this is a fairly slow month because I've been on tour. And I was going, fuck. me, man. Like,
Yeah,
that's just
you're paying
fucking,
for the steak.
yeah. Next time you're fucking paying for the steak. Yeah. No, in fairness, he was top notch. He was 100%. And you know what? He's as nice as he is on his videos as he is in person.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes very, very hard because we had a couple of issues, all right, when we were getting things going and stuff like that. And he was like, yeah, man, take your time, take your time. Now we looked after him. He had, just he ate the two big meals and then down 2 pints of Murphy straight afterwards, like right down the hatch. Like it was impressive to see that man eat a corn on the cob. He can demolish a corn on the cob in like 15 seconds. Like, I swear to God, man, it's phenomenal what he can do. And
was he staying in the town?
Yeah, we put him up for the night as well.
Did you have to get a plumber?
I put him in a hotel, man. I was like, that's it. Good luck tonight. I put him in one of the local hotels I do a lot of weddings for, and I was like, look, give me a solid and take him in there. But no, he enjoyed it, and he was top notch, and he was like I said, he was as nice, and he still is as nice to me now. I get the occasional comment on from him, like, which is a spotlight onto me, you know what I mean? Which is absolutely phenomenal. Like, even if I come and say happy birthday to him, he always comments to me, Terence, how's the family? How's the girl? Do you know, it's not one of them, thanks for tuning your way. Do you know, it's not one of them mundane copy and paste. It's always like, Terence, how you doing? Do you know, how's the wife and kids and all that type of stuff? But yeah, no, he's top notch guy. And I was just literally blown away by it. Like, but then he's at 1 million followers, you know what I mean? Same way he's getting paid on Facebook content creator as well. Facebook content is a bit harder though, because you got to get is it 10,000 friends on it, and you have to have 1,000 views or something like that. The other one is 4 and 1. I think the other one is 10 and 2 or something. There's
to get anything out of it. And the thing is, I suppose the weird thing with Facebook as well is Facebook counts a view at 3 seconds, while YouTube I think is around 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Plus, I remember a couple of years ago talking to Devin Graham, Devin Supertramp. He would have been the guy that did all the Assassin's Creed parkour videos and stuff. Very big YouTuber, and he was at a thing in Belfast, and we kind of hung out for a good bit. And he was making the point that like they would do a different edit for Facebook versus YouTube, simply because people are just there on their phone. They're like tumming. So they're not afforded the luxury of a 10-second start. They gotta get going, literally, to try and catch somebody. So it's very, should you do the two? Yes. I mean, I have a Vic Barry Vlogs Facebook page. I never updated because I hate Facebook. The best thing I ever did was I unfollowed every single person who's friends with me. I dumped a lot of them. I remember for years, like my wife was like, "Why are you leaving all these people into your?" I'm like, "But sure, they listen to the radio show." So for a while, it was just like accept, as opposed to creating a fan page or whatever. So I dumped a lot of people. I unfollowed everybody. So now all I see is groups that I'm a part of or pages that I've liked. So I've kind of removed some of the noise from the whole thing.
I was kind of wondering why you didn't accept my friend request, but that explains it all now.
Yeah, I never look at it, and there's a lot of people probably take it personally, but hey, send me an email.
It's much better to send him an email. Go the old-fashioned way. Send him a letter. He's that old school type.
Send the carrier pigeon. It's not. I just think Facebook is an absolute cesspit of negativity. And I think personally, if you read something on Facebook, or if you have an interaction with somebody on Facebook that has a kind of a negative connotation on you, that if you were like pissed off because you see these idiots on Facebook fighting about whatever, if that has a negative impact on you by making you annoyed for 20 minutes, then you can make someone else annoyed because they're like, Jesus, he's on about this again, shut up. What's the point? You know what I mean? What's the point? So, and that's something I kind of only done the last kind of year or so, just kind of shut it down essentially. So now I just partake in a couple of, basically it's barbecue, food groups, and camera gear. That's literally all I talk about these days on Facebook. That's a
combination thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and even then it's relatively rare. I'm one of these lurkers that's reading and learning. But yeah, I don't know what my first cousins have been doing. I'm sure they'll tell me if I see them on the street. I don't need a Facebook post to tell me that they went to the shop.
Yeah, that's it, or bought a Starbucks or something like that.
Yeah. And you know what? If that's what floats people's boats, then fine. But yeah, it's just idiots annoyed me. Maybe there were so many idiots over the years that just, Facebook was the straw that broke its donkey's back, basically. Yeah.
just no to Facebook.
Yeah, I appreciate what they've done. It's amazing what they've done, and the infrastructure behind them is phenomenal.
Mm.
But like, yeah, just leave me with my barbecue group and my camera gear stuff. I'm happy.
You have a great saying at the end of your vlogs: "Don't stop fighting for yourself." I love that, man. Where did that come
Yeah,
from?
that came from, I suppose, my own battles with mental health in a way. And it came from literally that you should never stop fighting for yourself. And that's essentially what it means ultimately. And because once you give up, that's it. Do you know what I mean? So you should never stop. There's always another day. There's always, the money will come from somewhere. There's always something. So you should never give up the fight, whether that's making YouTube videos, whether that's working in the bank. You should never stop fighting for yourself, because nobody else will.
No.
Um, yeah, we all have parents. If some of the, if you're lucky enough that your parents are still alive, or siblings, or good friends, but at the end of the day, you're the one that has to kind of get into the ring and do it. And it's just literally come from that. It's something that I've learned. You know, at difficult times, that sometimes you do have to step into the darkness. But you should never stop fighting for yourself. And I think that's always the thing that I'd remember, that can pull you back from the brink of not everything, but almost everything. So it was just a simple thing that I felt, this is something that resonates with people. And it just comes into the vlog. And when I'm talking about camera gear and that comes out of the blue at the end of the video, it's way out of left field, and it's completely unrelated, as opposed to going, oh, keep making videos, or keep pressing record, or, keep that aperture. Yeah. And it's just one of those things that kind of sticks with people, and I suppose the one thing I've learned out of the radio is words are very powerful. And if that helped one person somewhere down the line, then great. But it's kind of meant with a genuine sentiment at the end of the day, because it's what worked for me. And if it worked for me, then it might work for you or for somebody else. And it's a couple of words, it's 3 seconds. It's not going to kill me to say it,
But it comes across it does come across very genuine, which I will commend you on it. It genuinely does. Like it is a nice saying. Like I'm sick shit of looking, and I'll go down a rabbit hole or a wormhole, whatever you want to call it, and be on Facebook or Instagram or anything for 4 hours, and it's always me. Follow me, click me, buy my merch, buy my this, buy my that. But like, it's nice to hear that. Don't stop fighting for yourself. It's nothing. You're not signing off on, go buy this merch, or go buy my latest t-shirt, or you're not being directed. It's like, what? Take a second for yourself. Don't stop fighting for yourself. It's a great.
Yeah. I mean,
it's
like,
fantastic.
The t-shirts and stuff are coming next week, but but genuinely, it's just one of those things, and I suppose for me on the YouTube channel, it's about building the community. Do you know what I mean? So I spent over 10 years in the radio helping people. Obviously, what we're doing on YouTube is very different. What I do with Teamwork is very different, but it's still helping the brand. It's helping the brand grow. This kind of stuff. But from the YouTube stuff, it's about helping people be better editors, to make more informed decisions. It's about helping people. So it's come from there ultimately. So, when the day comes, don't stop fighting yourself. By the way, 50% off the first 1,000 people who sign up for a new team. Come back to me then, but the sentiment is genuine. You know what I mean? Because
I've just stopped the clock there now, so I'm going to just edited this little bit now. So when you do make it big, the very first comment underneath it is going to be boom. Yeah, look at this now. Where does he think he is now, fucker? Yeah, no, it is.
Randy Santel, clog your jacks again.
Could be. Yeah, but even you look on the other side of that, just using Randy as an example, and this is what people don't know. They don't know the people behind the camera. And like the amount of shit he gets online, oh, you're a fat bastard, and oh, you're this, and like he said 1,200 comments one day he had to go through, and he counted, was it 1,100 of them where you're going to die of a heart attack, you're a fat bastard. He's a dietitian. He's an actual qualified nutritionist, a nutrition and dietitian. Like, the guy's gone to college to do this. And he tested his blood, like he does his bloods this is his profession. He treats it as a profession. And like, people are just, and I think Mike Tyson has a great way of saying, and I've said it a couple of times here, so apologies if people have heard me, but people have gotten so used to writing things about people, and they haven't been getting punched in the face. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? You won't say it to someone straight up, but you'll say it behind the keyboard. And this keyboard warrior lifestyle has just become so huge, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And it's literally like you post something up and you think one thing is black or one thing is white. And then you'll get some fella, no, it's actually pink. And here's why.
Yeah, I don't care, and like a lot of people, I suppose for me, I was in an advantage that we got so much crap on the radio, So what people didn't see were the texts,
Yeah.
you know. If there was 200 texts came in a night, or 100 or 500 or whatever, there's a bunch of them are going to be derogatory. They're
Yeah,
going to
yeah, yeah.
say something. I saw your picture on Bebo, boy. You look like a donkey, or whatever.
Bebo, remember that? Bebo
And you're like,
fame.
so I kind of developed a bit of a thick skin, and I sometimes personally find it hard why people get so riled up about a negative comment. But that's me having had 11, 12 years of commercial broadcast experience where that is part of the job.
Mm-hmm.
That there are times you do drive home and you're like, geez, was that guy in the text right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was just one of those things that you learn to get a thick skin. Same with YouTube. My theory on all the comments is that everybody's a possible subscriber or a possible view. So if they've thumbs down something, if they've written a comment, I'm delighted, because it all goes back to the algorithm going, there's engagement.
Yeah, yeah.
So in a way, I put on the radio hat and go, let's get a conversation going, because you're going to drive the engagement, you donkey. I've blocked a couple of people, over the years, simply because I just get bored of dealing with them. So I'm like, okay, all right. You're never going to turn, but you're always coming back for the videos. That kind of that'll do. And I'm not going to waste 5 minutes of my day on the jacks trying to reply something else to you. So it's just one of those things, where like I wear a hat a lot of the time. Some dude was like, oh, who do you think you are, boy? You wear a hat, like, hat's for teenagers. I'm like, okay, all right, fair enough,
Thanks for your input, you fucking idiot.
Yeah, but let's just go again, and you can always resort to being the grammar Nazi then at the end of the day, because invariably these guys have spelled break with a R-A-K-E as opposed to an E-A-K, that's always the last line of defense, or the one thing that I used to do quite a bit, because the Star Wars videos brought in a lot of lunatics. And
I was like just fishing for them.
Yeah, it was just literally like, I'd always type back on, oh, you must be proud, your parents must be proud using your big boy words, I didn't think, oh, my mom is dead, boy, and you'd be like, oh, what about your dad? Oh, he's dead too. I was like, oh, sure, no, so you'd always keep it going, but it just gets boring after a while.
Yeah.
None of them would really bother me, but I don't know if there's many people are aware who Aaron Kraskell is. This absolutely huge Facebook star. He's from the UK. He's from London, and I saw him at a conference a couple of years ago. He's an incredibly nice dude, but he was kind of talking about, you just learn to deal with the trolls. But he says one guy said, "I hope your kids get killed in a car crash on the way to school," and that stopped him in his tracks. Do you know what I mean? And that's pretty. You don't like and this guy is doing funny videos. Do you know what I mean? Funny 60-second videos. There's nothing political. There's nothing. He's just such a good dude. And for somebody to go, I hope your kids
field,
like, oh, come on. So it is one of those things, but the media is a good training ground, because everybody thinks they can do it better. And fine, if you can do it better, great.
Go do it yourself.
Yeah, that's why you're sitting in your basement on your Nokia 6310, texting a radio station in the middle of the night. Yeah, thanks a million, great.
Yeah, do you know what? You have to be tough-skinned, or even hard-skinned, if you do be a DJ on any scale of it. If you're a rodeo DJ, or if you're on the road, or even professionally, you do just learn, because there's always one fella, I could do your job, so you only press buttons, what the fuck do you know, type of thing. Yeah. And it's like, you know what, lad, if you think you're so good at it, like they say, the other good thing was, when you, like, even we get a lot of, when you be working on a Friday or Saturday, like, oh yeah, I'm a DJ, I'm off to Ibiza now, and I'm going, lad, it's a Saturday night. If you're so good of a DJ, why aren't you DJ? Yeah, what do you mean? What do you mean? I says, if you're good, you'd be working, like, fuck off. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it used to drive me absolutely demented. But you become hard skinned to it, and it's just like, yeah, all right, fair enough, boy. Yeah, I'll go play some Joe Dolan. My head is fried.
Yeah,
Joe Dolan for you now, and I'll request like plenty of times. Like you'd have fellas come up, and I would genuinely get a kick out of just making fun of them, and it would just sit them right down. You go, what's your name? And they'll go, oh, my name is such and such, and you go, right. And I just stop the dance floor and just play anything at all, and would request it for him, so everyone turns around and looks at him. And I go, that's for fucking wrecking my head now for the last half an hour. And just get my little bit of my own back on them. But everyone would laugh. So, yeah. Do you know, it's one of them type of things that you have the power to do it. Just don't piss people off enough. Just keep everything,
you can always turn the majority of situations. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you have
one way or the other.
And you have to. Now, we've got one or two more questions, and I'm going to let you go, brother, because I know you're probably going to be doing another video. I watched you on
Actually, I'm ahead of myself. I'm ahead of myself slightly.
You did the video beforehand?
Yeah, there's one gone out there earlier on. So I normally kind of work about 2 or 3 videos ahead. So I'm good for this week. So I can stay here for another 3 minutes at least.
3 minutes.
I'm good. You're all good, man. Drive on.
Do you still own VictorBarry.com? Or did you get rid of it?
No, I got it. Yeah, the ego wouldn't leave me to let that go. Yeah, I know. So that just goes to the YouTube channel right now. But the merch and stuff will go on there in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
You can't let that go. That's 14 euros a year. It has to go to some fella hosting station that you have that onto.
Yeah, totally.
I saw one of you took a trip down to Barley Cove. You like West Cork, don't you? And I must admit, you came down west to Barley Cove and Mizzen Head in November. Not even local people go out west in November. You went to Barley Cove and your kid was like, how do you get over to the other side of the beach? And you came down. We even take away the pontoon come November. No one goes to Barley Cove in November.
That video is, Jesus, three odd years old at this stage. But it was just one of those things. Where do we go today? Because I was like, I need content for a video. So there's nobody really on YouTube searching for the title of that video. There's nobody, compared to now. But it was just one. I like West Cork. I was in Glengarriff on Saturday, Sunday, and we're in the fish. We're in the fish basket in Castle Freak. They're just up from Monahinch. They're big fan of the lads down there. They do amazing fish and chips. So we're down there on the other day, trying to stay healthy, which didn't work.
I hope you're getting free fish and chips now for giving them a shout out.
So no, I'm not. I'll be down tomorrow. What time do they? Hang on. They're fishing tomorrow. I'll get the coffee and the cake.
Down for another. There you are. There's an idea for a video, isn't it? Content. How the boys back in the fish.
No, they've been in a couple of videos actually. They've been in a couple of videos. But like since I did the whole kind of weight loss thing there a couple of years ago when I started out in SPG in Blackpool, there's less trips to houses of deep fried hens and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
you're looking after you're an apple a day now type of fella.
I wouldn't say an apple a day, but we did this kind of huge weight loss journey. Or kind of in the second 2.5 years into 3 years now. It was 110 pounds. It dropped. Out with SPG, and I'm still there, still following the food plans and stuff like that. And it's all good. Obviously, weight goes up and weight goes down, but that was something that I had to do. And that was probably
feel better?
The lowest point. Yeah, 100%. Like one of the last sessions I did, because we set a target for November, they literally put the amount of weight I lost on a sled, and I had to push that around as part of the circuit. And you're like, I can barely push this. And they're like, this is what you were carrying around, and you're like, oh. But I mean, it was a complete change of mindset, and mentally it was a huge boost, But completely feel better.
Awesome. So you've been busy, and then hobbies and stuff like that. Hobbies is your cameras and stuff, or do you have any?
That's it. Nah, I just live a miserable existence. When my wife is going, I get most things delivered to the office in teamwork, which is fine, because I can just leave it in the boot of the car, and then when she goes out, I can bring it in, and it's just amalgamated into the GoPros and all the other crap on the shelves inside her. Hobbies, making videos. I don't know.
That's all right.
No, I'm no hobbies really. Travel, like a bit of travel. you know, I don't
You
go
still into your
fishing.
drones? I know you're into your drones.
Yeah,
You still into them?
yeah, I still have the drone. Again, that's another gear acquisition syndrome problem. Where in this country you can only fly the bloody thing, you know, about 3 weeks of the year. Um, so yeah, I haven't flown the drone in a couple of weeks, but yeah, still into the drones. Again, it's just one of those things. I need that. Why? Well, I'm pretty sure there's a YouTuber somewhere had a drone. Yeah, you better buy that too. I lost it like when we had that big snowstorm. I just took it up too high, completely forgetting that there's these enormous winds that would bring in a snowstorm. So the drone drifted 7 miles, and like the controller gives you a
GPS.
GPS, the last known location before the drone lands, because the DJI stuff will land automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it in a field 7 miles away. How in like 2 foot snow, it was destroyed, but it still works.
Christ.
It still works, and it's been kind of all over the world, and it hasn't exploded yet or hurt anybody or killed anybody, God forbid. Like, so yeah,
It's doing its job. So it's sort of, has it earned its money or earned its
no,
keep?
God no, God no, God no. If I actually started using it, it might. It's just one of those things.
You gotta get it. You gotta
Gotta
get
get
it,
it.
man. So how's COVID been treating you? Has it been bothering you, or?
I suppose with teamwork, with the ability to work from home.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, I'd be like, oh, this is going to be hell. And then the first couple of days, like, this is actually, I got a lot done, very productive. Then the first couple of weeks went by, they were really good. Didn't struggle at all with it. You know, with the lockdown as such, you know, while I know the guards are doing their jobs, like, where are you going? The shop. Which shop? Dunn's out there in Bishopstown, but sure, isn't there a shop there behind you? I'm like, oh yeah, but yeah, I'm going out for clothes for the children. All right, yeah, off you go.
yeah.
You know, so that was
job.
the only, yeah, that was the only kind of pain in the butt really of the whole thing. I thought it was okay. You know, it wasn't the worst. Could it have been better? Yeah, I suppose, you know, the element of fear that's there now, that the media have done a pretty good job of instilling the fear. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I've all the masks, and, you know, I'm pretty sure my blood group is now called, you know, hand sanitizer at some degree. But there's a lot of fear mongering going on as well. I think, you know, you take the best of the knowledge that's out there and just deal with it, and that's it.
Yeah.
And do the best that you can, you know, because there's a lot of old people are just absolutely terrified. Simply because it's the constant fear mongering. And that was one of the things we did in the radio years ago, is there was such, from a recession, there was such a kind of a negative vibe all the time, that we made a decision, let's try and do something positive, or let's not just be beating the same crap down people's throats that they've listened to all day. Now they're getting it at night. Let's try and turn things on the up. So humor is always an important thing. So I think a lot of that is lost now, just from a media perspective. Said old people are just, you know, I know there's plenty of parents out there who are like, oh my God, you know, we can't go outside the door because it's just, we're all going to die, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right. You know, you know, it's just one of those things. But yeah, COVID has been okay. We've all been COVID free, thankfully, you know.
Good.
And I don't know anybody that's got it, like a lot of other people. But you know, it's been okay. Hopefully, it's kind of coming to an end now. But if you fall down the subreddits of conspiracy theories and stuff, like, this is only the start. Bill Gates is going to be driving around in a van with a vaccine next week, you know?
Just shooting people, darting people out the back of his van.
Yeah.
Up the north side of Cork with a fucking spitting arrow. Just hitting people with vaccines.
Things have happened.
Yeah, it could happen, man. Stranger things have happened. Like, hey, we've got UFOs now.
Yeah.
You know, what they don't call them UFOs, they call them vehicles that aren't built on this planet. Isn't that what they? That's what they
released? Some line, something like that. Yeah, or unmanned origins or whatever, non-human origins.
Yeah, man, I'd say we're all doomed. The year 2020, man, the year that just keeps on giving.
Keeps on
giving. It does. Like Liverpool could win the Premier League.
Yeah, it's I'll be glad to see the end of this year, just because, you know, a lot of people write off a year and go, okay, it'll be good in 2021, but it's just another day. But this has been a pretty crap year, I think, for a lot of people. You know,
It's been a pretty heavy year, and I think that's a lot to do with social media aspect of it. People are just so stressed that like they're just biting. You know, like you don't even need anything at all. They're just going, and it's like a big rant, and they're just like people are just, I think, looking for outlets. And I don't think we have outlets anymore, or people just don't know how to deal with pressure anymore. No, I blow my fuse as much as the next person. But yeah, I don't know. I don't feel people are even taught in school how to deal with things. I don't think kids are taught how to deal with certain things. Like everyone's a pressure cooker, you know, and they really are. Like they're just ready to explode out of it.
Like for all the good that social media does and has done, I think the negative far outweighs the good a lot of the time, especially, you know, depending on everybody's mental health. You, as I said earlier on, you can spend 10 minutes on Facebook and just get into the height of depression simply because you have a bunch of idiots fighting over idiotic things, or, you know, they read something on the back of a website somewhere and then it's their opinion and it's based on absolutely nothing, clue. And it's just one of those things where you have to kind of police it yourself, and you have to go, I've had enough. Just shut down, you know, or just do what I did, unfollow everybody, and then slowly but surely just delete them all, and then only deal with the barbecue groups and the camera groups. No, but it's a big thing, you know. I think that if anybody out there is kind of on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram and they are kind of seeing this wall of negativity, just start blocking that stuff. It's only a button, you know, that will go on whether you're there or not. And if you don't need to see it, like who does need to see it, then you don't need to see it. Just get rid of it. It's just one of those things which I don't think lends any good to anybody if it's affecting you negatively. If you are blowing your fuse, or if you are freaking out, it's just like, screw this. Just
one of my big things, and it's my pet peeves, is when people put up a certain type of shopping every year that they have done already, and I just go delete, and I just go unfollow. I don't want to hear about it. You know, that's the one thing I think that everybody should still keep in this modern age, is that mystery. But yeah, no, when that's shopping, when I've done all that type of shopping for that particular time of the year, oh, that's a red flag. That's a red flag to me. I'm just going unfollow, delete, unsubscribe. Good luck.
Yeah. Or you'd see on that particular night of the year, like people are posting up photographs at 12. And I'm like going, what am I doing? You know, there's only, I don't have many walls left to punch holes in anymore. Like, you know, it's just like, but what's it for? You know, here's the thing, Terrence. What's it for? Do you know what I mean? What is it for? Does somebody go, okay, I'm going to get it. If I post this up, there's 50 grand coming in the post tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. Do you know what I mean? But unfortunately, there's probably a narcissist in us all. We all like the like. We all like to get it. It's validating on what we believe or what we read from some donkey somewhere else, and then we're regurgitating that. And it's probably destroying the human element of a lot of things as well. The face-to-face thing, you know, the physical connection, where we spoke about keyboard warriors earlier on. Like, you go face-to-face with any of these people, none of them will be able to utter a sentence.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like I was big on Twitter for a long time. I came out of it. I'm still on it, but I came out of it because I was getting bored of it. Now I'll only interact with positive people or stuff that genuinely interests me. Exact same on Facebook, exact same on Instagram. I follow a bunch of people because I like their stuff. I'm not interested in anything else. So that's probably good best practice. Stick to what you're into. And at least then it's something kind of positive versus just all the other crap that goes on. Like,
there's only a certain amount of space we have in our brain. Where, you know, we're not supercomputers, you know, and if your brain is at 100% all the time, you're just not going to be able to fit anything else, you know.
100%. Yeah,
you got to just, you know, you just got to literally delete. Think of your brain as your phone, you know. If your phone is full, it runs slow. So anything you don't need, just get that shit out of your life, you know. But people feel the need to keep everything there, though. They almost want to keep the negativity and the nastiness, and they're like, oh, I have to keep that in my life, and I have to start fighting, and I have to bite it. And
man, I think if people can surround themselves with a little bit of positivity, like misery loves company, so you attract what you put out. So it's as easy to be negative as it is positive, and it's even easier when there's a keyboard in front of you, whether that's one on your phone or one on a laptop or whatever. So no, it's very true, dude. Like 100%. Like, you know, I don't. It's some weird validation that people want. What does it do at the end? At you know, what does it do? You're on your deathbed going, oh, well, I got 5,800 likes.
On your
you.
headstone, 400,000 followers.
That would be a great headstone, actually, wouldn't it? And I guarantee you, in like, that has to be on somebody's headstone somewhere. I know it's a really morbid topic, but you hit the nail on the head, dude. You know?
Yeah. You can't take it with you. There's no hitch in a hearse, as they say.
That's such a good saying, dude. There's no hitch in a hearse, 100%.
Yeah, we're all here. Or don't take life too seriously. We're not getting out of life.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. Just dump the negative dopes.
Yeah, there's a fucking lot of them out there. Never underestimate the power of stupidity. That's one of my golden ones, because people are stupid, and people are very, very. And you know, sometimes you get to a certain level, and it's like, my dad has a great thing about it. My dad is 50. Oh, if he's watching it now, my mother be probably watching this. He'd be 55, 56, maybe somewhere along that. He was born in 63, so whatever that is. And he says, he only cares about 5 people. He only cares about me, my mom, my kids, my brother, and his dad. And that's it. That's it. He don't give a fuck about anybody else. Unless it comes into his direct circle, he don't care.
Yeah.
You know? And he really doesn't care. And it's a great way, like, you know, and I'm blessed to have him, because he was such a great figure. And he was very strong. Do you know what I mean? He was he was tough, very tough on me. And like, you know, fuck man, I used to swear at him, and fucking, you know, sons and dads kicked my fucking ass, and, you know, he gave me a straight line. And I think a lot of people are missing that, and a lot of young people are missing it, because, you know, we were talking about, I had Jamie Meany on with me. He works for, it's a massive big thing, but basically what he does is he's online protection. He's a member of the Garda Síochána. He's a detective, and it was one of the podcasts I think I did like 2 weeks ago with him, where it was just like all this online stuff, how he gave a simple example of, we're so flippant with our information online. You know, if revenue came along and asked us where we worked or what we did last week, we wouldn't tell them. However, Facebook asks us where we went to school, where we went to primary school, where we went to fucking high infants, we'll tell it. And we'll tell it also our last 6 years of employment. You know, it's like, why do all this type of stuff? But he brought up a great thing about how young kids are just getting so bogged down in Instagram, where they're putting up their perfect life. And if they're not even getting likes when they're showing their perfect life, and no one's perfect, but when they actually go back into the real world, they're like, Jesus, if people don't like me when I'm perfect, how the fuck am I going to get through this week when I'm not? You know, and he gave it some. Now I'll have to go back and look at it, because he was using words that I didn't have a clue. But I got the stream of it anyway. But it was just like this syndrome that kids are becoming, and if they don't get as many likes as they want, they either take down their picture, but they can't work out their real life after that. If they're being so perfect online, and they show the apple perfectly shined and all that, and then they go, oh shit, I only got like 10 likes of that. And then they're going, how can I go tomorrow to work or tomorrow to school or whatever it is when everything is there? You know, so like you said, there's a lot of positivity with social media and stuff like that, but it's got to be used right.
Yeah, I do. I kind of do dread my kids growing up into what social media is going to, you know, morph into in the next 5 years. You know, and it's just it is worrying, you know, that they're doing it for a bunch of strangers. You know. Like the whole Gary Vaynerchuk thing, you know, I know people love him, some people hate him. Sometimes if I'm in the mood, I listen to a podcast or whatever, but he's always a good thing about, you know, about you're trying to impress people who couldn't give a fuck about, or they could care about you, you know, and it's just like, for what? Like, you know?
Yeah.
I watched a thing a talk that he did, and there was a guy, you know, he asked him, he wanted to see money, whatever, and he's like, you know, what do you drive? Because I drive a BMW. And he goes, do you drive a BMW because you like the car and the mechanics of it, or do you like to drive the BMW because of how it makes other people feel about you?
Yeah.
You know, and that's case in point what you were saying there as well, you know. And like,
so what do you drive, Vic?
BMW.
That's what I knew.
Well, there's 200,000 in the clock, so you know.
It's an old school one.
Yeah. But it's just one of those things where, again, people are trying to impress whoever for what?
Yeah,
you know, if there was some genuine benefit to it at the end of the day, where you got paid for it, or whatever. If it was part of your job, you'd go, okay, fine. And even brands are living and dying on social media. It's kind of crazy. And when you're on social media, you are open to all of these head cases coming in, and that's where the problem starts. You know,
Definitely.
does somebody not like me? Who doesn't like you, Johnny? I don't know. Scooter 2018 said he doesn't like me because my Apple isn't that shiny. You're like, fuck Scooter 2018. It's just like, who cares? Well, that's easy
Yeah,
for me to say. That's easy for you to say. And I think
but some
everybody.
people do care.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, everybody's always looking for validation or acceptance. And I think from parenting point of view, it's important to get. You don't need acceptance from anybody.
Yeah, but see, that's hard. Then if you've got parents, and like we touched on it with the Jamie Meany podcast. If you have parents that are pre-internet, as in like they didn't grow up with it. My father has no clue what Facebook is, has no clue what Instagram is. He knows YouTube and stuff like that basically because I've been telling him my videos are online, and if I have someone interesting on, he'll come on and listen to it. But as far goes social media, like he's just learned what smileys were, and emojis. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he puts them at the end of his text messages and thinks he's fucking, I don't know, Star Trek. Do you know what I mean? Like Elon Musk here with my smiley happy face or my thumbs up. But yeah, no, he wouldn't have a clue. He wouldn't have a clue how to deal with it. Like if to a certain degree, he'd be like, get over yourself. Do you know, which is kind of the hardline Irish dad. Fuck him, he's fine. But it's fine for me because I would have a certain okay with it. You know what I mean? My skin would be slightly hardened. But for parents that don't know what it is and can't help their kids, the kid will feel very alone. And that's the scary part. It's that generational gap that we need to close. The educational gap as well.
Yeah, like my take on that is quite black and white. If there's parents out there, sure, I don't know computers or I don't understand it, that's your fault. You know what I mean? You got to go learn. I mean, if there's parents out there from a social media perspective who are worried about their kids, then go set up a Facebook account, go set up a Twitter, an Instagram, a TikTok account, a Bebo account, whatever, a MySpace account, and figure out what it is. I think there's way too many people who are terrified of technology for what I don't know what, I don't know why that is, that particularly, people of my parents' age or yours or elderly, they're like, it's like if I press this button, China's going to explode, or the Russians are going to come for me. Yeah, it's like you can't really break it. It's fine.
You can put it in a pint is the only way you can break electronics.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, it's at a push. So it's one of those things where you have to educate yourself, and for your kids. Don't do it for you, do it for your kids. In the same way that people would have been educated about not leaving your kids wander around or, keep away from strangers. You had to learn that. And then
stranger danger.
Yeah, exactly. And you pass that on to your kids and so on. This is the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, what I say to my kids, and none of them are on social media, but even from just like we say, playing video games online, it's like, do you talk to a stranger in public? No. Why would you talk to a stranger? Oh, but sure, they're playing. I'm like, but you don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mary, 2015 could be, Jim Bob there somewhere in the swamps of Florida. You don't know. So
yeah, you got to be careful.
It's a bit of common sense, but I'm very black and white in it. If a parent doesn't know, it's nobody else's fault.
Yeah.
You gotta learn. There's plenty of resources there. There's plenty of community resources as well, I think, around. But the computer that's in the house, the thing that's in your pocket every single day, that you're kind of typing with one finger trying to send the text. That's where you can learn. That's where you can figure it out. And if you blow up China by doing it, then you blow up China, but I don't think that's going to happen. You know what I mean? Or you're not going to lose all your money to some Nigerian prince or whatever.
Please give me your bank details.
It doesn't work. You just can't kind of see my bank. What's my number? And the glasses go down, and they're like 0, 5. That's
Or when they video chat, then it's this type of up the nose type picture, like. Do you know what I mean?
That's another pet peeve. Just tilt the camera a little bit, you know. I don't want to see those snots, you know. And
You,
and
I saw
maybe
your
that
video on that. Actually, that was quite funny. You did a video on that one too for your online meetings.
it's just like, come on, you know. It's not that hard, you know. Because I'm sure if you're looking at the camera, you're looking down. Because I know there's some laptops, there's some of the Dell laptops, and as opposed to having the camera on the top, they have it on the bottom.
Yeah,
So I was on a call with somebody there the other day, and I'm like, why can I see the top of their keyboard? I'm like, where is your camera? They're like, oh, it's the bottom. And I'm like, that's just, I don't know. So it's, the worst is going to happen is absolutely nothing. So from a parent's perspective, please just learn for your kids, you know.
just get involved. That's what you got to do. You
That's it.
just have to get involved.
Exactly, man. That's just get involved, and then in a while you can sell T-shirts and stuff, and you'll be driving a Lambo, and it's all good.
Or that famous BMW, whichever.
Yeah, one or the other. Yeah.
I like Gary Vaynerchuk. I have one pet peeve with him though.
Right.
The way he talks is like, you know, get a job. Like I do like certain things about him, and I will like I said, if I'm in the mood for him, I have a tendency he repeats himself an awful lot. It's the same stuff over same things all the time. But it's easy. I find it easy for him to talk about how he hustled to make his dad's wine business from 1 million to 5 million. Like your dad was a millionaire. Do you know what I mean? It's not as if you're coming off the poverty line.
Yeah,
you know?
it's not, he didn't start at zero.
He didn't start at zero. Like, you know, no, he made it himself. You know, he did have a helping hand, and you can take a horse to water, and he mightn't drink it.
Yeah, that's true.
And the old saying is like the first generation makes it, the second generation breaks it, and the third generation loses it. So there's a lot of that in life. But he just grinds me sometimes, and then I put him away. I do like the whole thing. He's like, you know, kids, get out, get working, get yourself involved, fail, try everything. You know, like I've had more jobs in the FOSS office, but I haven't liked many of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when I realized I didn't like any of them, I started working for myself. And then there we were. And I've kind of been doing that, thankfully, for a long time, which is fantastic, but not great now. But maybe in 2021 we'll buy that BMW yet.
Yeah. It always gets better, man. It always gets better. It always gets better. But like, again, I can take him or leave him, and you're 100% right, Turns. He has like the kind of the soapbox moments, and they're the same each time, and they're slightly different each time. You know, you go, oh, I've heard that, and you're like, right, I'll listen to something else. But he still hammers home the point, and he's done an incredible job of creating his brand. You know, I know a few people who have parted ways with 10 grand to sit in a room with him for an hour. You can do the whole thing with VaynerMedia where you get a team around you and a bunch of other strangers to talk about your business, and they come up with a plan, and then he wanders in for an hour or two, and you're going, okay, that's my 10 grand. You know, you get the photo op and all of that kind of stuff. But he's done an incredible job of building that whole VaynerMedia brand and what he does. And it's kind of insane, you know, and that's the thing. But he has the story, and I think that's a huge key to any brand is story.
Yes.
You know, like there's a good couple of books out there in marketing. Primal Branding is one of the big ones. You know, every amazing brand has 7 key things, like from the leader, from their iconography, and their story is always in there. You know, and he, like John Kavanagh is another one that has an incredible story. You know, absolutely huge story. And his brand, you know, it's kind of crazy. You can say the exact same for McGregor or a lot of the UFC fighters, but if you look at the UFC, you know, if you look at the top of the pile, McGregor and we'll say Kavanagh shine out all the time simply because they have a genuinely good story. I mean, look at Joe Rogan, you know, he's got an incredible story, like, you know, I mean, look at where he's from, comedy to UFC to the podcast is insane.
Do you ever look at this? Do you ever look at before I started doing this podcast, I was like, shit, I better make sure everything's perfect. I better do this. I better that. Do you ever look at the very first podcast Joe Rogan put up on YouTube?
I looked at it actually, funnily enough, only the other day, and it's like
crazy.
That's awfully bad. But it just goes to show the progress. And there's the story. There's the story as well, you know. Because and I'm a big believer that if you don't get better at something that you're doing, you're not doing it right, and you shouldn't be doing it.
Mhm.
you know. Um, and Rogan is, as we're talking about him as an example, go back to the first one and go back to the most recent one, you know.
Mm.
And you can, I think you can look at any content creator, or you can look at any kind of anybody in a creative space, from a Cabin Fever podcast in 5 years, where that's going to be. Do you know what I mean? And it's, you just put in the grind and you put in the work.
Probably still in the attic in my house.
Hey, but you know what? If you get some new uplighters and stuff,
Hey, here's going.
no, but genuinely, if you put
Yeah.
in the grind, and I'm a big believer in the fact that you should never, ever, ever stop learning.
No.
Because the moment you go, I'm good enough, that's the moment you should go.
Yeah.
Ultimately, whether that's making videos, painting, drawing, scratching your ass, there's always a better way to do something. There's always something new to learn. And yeah, you can go onto Skillshare, you can go onto Udemy and you can do the course, or you can just throw it into Google, or like YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. There is tutorials there for everything.
Tie your shoelaces to tie your tie,
Everything, So there is no excuse for you not to get better, or, oh, it's too hard. Everything is always hard at the start, But as soon as you start, as soon as you press record, or, whatever it is, or pick up the brush, like, you're a million miles away from where you were the day before, and then the journey is started. There's a great TED talk from James Cameron, the movie director, and he's kind of got this very good point about failure is an option, fear is not. That, yeah, of course failure is an option, but fear shouldn't be. And his thing is, like, once you pick up a camera, you're a film. Once you press record, you're a filmmaker just like me. The only difference is I get paid more than you, because he's doing it a lot longer. And that's the thing. Whatever, I suppose, from my creative side, I'm always kind of going back to video, but no matter what it is, whether it's podcasts, creating websites, whatever, like, you have to start somewhere. Everyone starts at zero, and it's what you do. You don't just sit there and go on, oh, the next podcast will be next week. You try and make it better, whether that's audio, whether it's however, you always try and make it better. I go back and I look at my early YouTube videos, or I go back and look at the early teamwork videos, and I'm like, God, didn't they fire me? I'm like, did they even look at some of these? And I go back to my own videos, like that video that you spoke about there in Barley Cove, like, that's all over the place. There is nothing. There's no story. There's nothing in it. So I wouldn't dream of putting that out now. Like, it would absolutely kill me to press publish on something like that, because I've got better since I made that. You know what I mean? And
trim the beard and stuff like that too.
Yeah, and lost 100 odd pounds. But you should never stop learning. Whether that's one of the courses, YouTube, books, audiobooks. Like, I listen to an awful lot of Audible stuff.
So do I. I can't read, so yeah, it helps.
Yeah, I'm similar, but I always find it difficult reading while driving, so I just listen. So I just find it invaluable, that you can find all of this stuff for just a couple of bucks a month, and off you go. So there is no excuse. Because here was the thing they used to always say in the radio show for competitions, whether it was a big competition or a small competition, you always be like, you don't want to be the person that wakes up tomorrow morning and Mary up the road is after winning the holiday. All because she picked up the phone, all because she made the effort. And you sat there on your ass, looking at GoPros on a shelf, going, all right, I won't bother ringing it, sure, he wouldn't win it anyway, or it's too hard. You don't want to be the person that knows the person that
who wins.
Yeah, exactly. And all it takes is a bit of effort,
Yeah. I like the same thing. Even I've been doing these now for 2 months, 3 months. And even my first one compared to what we're doing now is leaps and bounds ahead of it. But I'm still sort of going, like, I cringe to hear my own voice at a certain part. And I'm going, oh, do I have to say that? Or, oh, did I have to have said that? I could have, like, there's nothing worse than coming off a podcast and going, fuck, I should have said that. Or, but then you think of it for the next one. And you kind of go, you kind of make your little notes, and you kind of do this, and you kind of do your homework to find out more about the guest you're having on your history. Because, like, some of the times I wouldn't know them. I would have no background of them at all, but I have to go through it. Like, I knew Victor Barry from Red FM. That was it. Listening to him, years and years ago, swearing. I have to commend you. You haven't sworn, I think, maybe once on
Yeah,
this. So
yeah,
fair play to you. I swear a lot. So yeah, I won't be making any of them kid-proof videos on YouTube. Definitely not. But yeah, you just got to grow. You either what was it? You either win or you learn. Isn't that Cavanaugh's and McGregor's saying? You
yeah.
either win or you learn.
You lose and you learn. You
Yeah,
know, because
yeah,
if you don't learn from the mistakes, that's what it's all about. Like, 'cause, you know, one of the things in radio was that we were always actively encouraged to go back and listen to the show that you did last all the time.
really.
But yeah, all the time. So you listen back and go, geez, why did I say that? You know, it's not that I would never do it, but you'd be like, the last thing I want to do now over Thursday night is go back and listen to the last 3 hours or scan through bits.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I remember being in Hillbillies in McCartan Street of a Thursday night, because that was the thing after the show, we'd go to Hillbillies. And I remember standing in the queue and they would have the repeat on. So we'd
Yeah,
play
yeah.
an hour back of a Thursday and a Sunday. I remember listening, I was like, did I really say the word basically that amount of times? I was going, Jesus almighty. And even I was annoyed in the queue. So then you go back and you'd go, and then you'd find a crutch. So there's certain words that are a crutch. Sometimes they signify that you have no clue what you're saying next. And by saying that word, you're buying yourself an extra
2 seconds to think.
second to think, you know?
Yeah,
So it
yeah,
can be
yeah,
a crutch like that. And it can be just a habit, you
yeah.
know? And it was just one of those things that you'd go back and you'd address it. And that's how you get better, because you're losing listeners by saying basically every 3 seconds. And by going back and changing that, you eventually get out of that habit. And then that's where you become a better presenter or a better whatever, because nobody walks into a job and
Perfect.
like, you don't like, and if you do, and if you think that, you shouldn't be there. When I started in radio, like, I had
How did you start from radio? As being a creative type person, radio, like that seems
like, I started in Cork campus radio. I didn't go to UCC, but there was a friend of mine had a radio show up there. I worked in a video game shop. He said, why don't you come up there and talk about video games there for Tuesday night for 15 minutes? I was like, yeah, Grant, come up. Like, thinking I was like Howard Stern, because I was a big Howard Stern fan, going, I'm going to come up and I'm going to talk about, you know,
that's some voice. I don't know how he does it. He must have that compressed to shit. It's a horror, like it's
and that's literally how I started. And we were into WWE or WWF at the time, the wrestling stuff. And he said, I pitched a wrestling show because we had the internet, so we'd get the Monday Night Raw results of a Tuesday, as opposed to waiting for the Friday for it to turn up in
Sky Sports.
Sky Sports, so we were doing spoilers on Cork Campus Radio and UCC 97.4 it was, of a Tuesday night. And, you know, it's college radio, but you have all these young fellas running up, the Stone Cold win by Victor, the Stone Cold win. And they were like, where are all these people coming from, you know? And at the time, like, after probably 2 years of that or whatever, your man left, and I was doing the video game IT thing, and then we do the wrestling thing afterwards. And one of the lads went out to Red as a producer, Colin O'Sullivan, another fellow from Bantry.
Yeah.
And
we breed him down here, boy.
I'm telling you, man. There's something in the water. And he said, would you do the wrestling thing with Charlie Wolf? Charlie was doing Talk at Night, and I was like,
Charlie Wolf, fuck yeah, Jesus.
I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, you know, just grand, whatever. And I did it one night. I was
no big deal.
And we were up in Galway, and myself and the missus night away. We're out in a place called Mam Cross, which is out in, it's even further up than Galway. And he was like, oh, we bring you on at 9:05, you know? And I'm like, oh yeah, grand. He goes, have you got your stuff ready? I was like, yeah. And I didn't go on till like 11:05. So my missus is lying in the bed asleep, and then here's me doing wrestling impressions to this mad American, you know, 200 miles away. And he's like, oh yeah, we might do that again. Charlie thinks you were fairly good. And then I came in, and then after a couple of weeks, Des Bishop was doing a gig in the comedy club. So Des, we never talked about wrestling. There was like the young fella section, Victor, we done any raw results by here for the last 4 days, and there's no fucking results, like. Stop talking to the Americans, by, you know. And then like Henry Condon, Henry Owens, who was the CEO of Red at the time, said, you know, do you want to do more of this? I'm like, so I can do maybe a Wednesday night or something. And he's like, no, no, no. He goes, do you want to do more? Charlie's going on holidays. Do you want to cover his holidays? And I'm like, oh, I don't even know how to run the desk. Like, I'm just the dope that comes in and mumbles for like 10 minutes of a Tuesday night. And he's like, you'd be grand. And KC taught me how to run the desk. And I covered a week or two of holidays for Charlie, thinking, I'm like Howard Stern here, you know. I remember listening back to it, going, "What kind of car?" I mean, this wasn't a car crash. This was like a cataclysmic calamity, and I had this like weird American accent on, you know. I remember I interviewed Cillian Murphy years ago, just after he got a part for Batman. I'm pretty sure he just, like, when he heard me, he damn stopped writing his tracks. Going, I'm sure this fellow's supposed to be from Cork. Why does he sound like he's from some? And I had this really bad American accent for a long, long time. But eventually, like, you know, Henry at the time said, right, look, you know, Charlie's not coming back. Will you do at night? And the arse didn't fall out of it, and we grew it somehow. But I always remember when Henry moved on, the chairman of the board came in as acting CEO for a while, and we had a number of conversations. And he goes, "Can I ask you a personal question?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Did you spend a lot of time in America?" I'm like, going, "No." He goes, "Are you from Cork?" I'm like, he goes, "Will you just fucking talk like you're from Cork?" You know, and I had to shift that, but that's essentially how I kind of got started with, I mean, like a really, really, really bad American accent, like, you know, and I would never address it on air. You know, I probably should have, you know,
I think everyone, like, I think everybody starts with that. Like, I remember when I first started DJing, like, you look at them voices, and especially the wrestling voices. There was your man, that small little fella, the ring announcer.
Howard Finkel, is it?
Howard Finkel, what a voice.
Yeah.
Everybody tried to pull that voice off, and they're like, what? Do you know what I mean? Or if you had The Rock or any of them real deep, they had that sort of power in their voice. And I was guilty for having an American. People still think I'm from America if I talk. And on the occasions that I sort of forget myself, that I'm like, oh yeah, Jesus, you're Terence from Dublin that's now living in Bantry. So you're kind of a cultural, you know, cataclysmic of bad accents, like.
You're American now than you are to Dublin, I suppose.
Well, probably.
But you know what I mean? It was just one of those things that again, these things are, when you'd listen back, you'd eventually get better. And until when he said that to me, I was like, okay, he's right. Do you know what I mean? And it was hard to shift it. Like,
can you still do it?
I can't, because literally my voice would go up like 5 octaves, and I'm pretty sure I was talking through my sinus, not even my nose, just my sinus. It was absolutely awful, man. It was, you know, I remember doing an interview with Nancy Sinatra and telling her this story, and I was going, I listened
Nancy Sinatra, of all people.
Yeah, of all, and I was listening back going, this sounds really, really bad, you know. I was just like, oh man, it was just one of those things that I had to shift, you know.
Yeah.
And it was embarrassing, you know, but at the time I didn't know what I sounded like in my head. But when you listen back and you try and listen to it objectively, you're going, holy, this is just like,
who's this guy?
Yeah, you know. And at the time it would have been great fodder for like a competitor station to pull the Mickey out of it, you know. And like, if social media existed the way it did by now, like, I would have been crucified, like on a broadcast hour somewhere, you know. But it came down to the fact that, as we said, you've got to learn and get better, you know. Same thing from an interview perspective. You know, I would start with 5 questions or 6 questions. I would come in. This was my very early days. I would write out 5 questions or 6 questions. I had no clue about politics. And I would deal with all of these politicians. And I remember having I won't say who he is, but he's now a minister. And he came on, and I asked him whatever question, and he gave the answer. And I was so obsessed with looking at the questions, I forgot where I was. And I asked him the same question again. And he kind of said, I've just answered that. He obviously twigged, your man's after screwing up. I'm like, yeah, but just answer it again there, you know? And I was like, oh my God. You know, so those were the things. And I remember anonymous
This was
ran.
all live radio?
Oh, this was all live.
How
You
did
know,
you
I was
manage
like,
for so many years?
I don't know, man. I don't know. And there was another minister came on one night, and I asked him. I had my 6 questions or my 5 questions, and I asked him question number 1, and he went on, and without even getting a breath in, he had answered in one long spiel all of the other questions as well. And I'm like, I can't go on. What do I do?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What do I do? And it's like, okay, you need to be a better conversationist, and that's the way where I took the whole idea of having a conversation and trying to pull out the guts of a conversation and make people feel relaxed and make people feel comfortable and build relationships with them where it didn't matter, you know, they got me, I got them, and you could handle anybody, you know, from a politician to a CEO to whoever, you know. And some of the comedians would get it really well, like Pat Short. Just Pat's a good buddy. Like Pat just got it. Do you know what I mean? The first time we eventually got him in, he just got it and he just went with it. And the next time, just whatever, you know. And it was just one
so
of those
natural.
things. Yeah, and that's the way it had to be, you know, and that's how we got the best out of people. Like the Americans, anytime we'd have American celebrities on, they were like, oh, what are the questions? We're like, we don't give you questions. So they'd be used to the talk show circuit in the States where, well, we're going to talk about your summer holidays, we're going to talk about the movie, and then we're going to talk about a funny story with your kid. And like, you know, the Lettermans or the Lenos very rarely draft off from those. But we didn't do that. So they came at us completely as like an open book. And that's where, if I had my 5 or 6 questions, I was done. So the point is that, yeah, have your bullet points that, okay, I am going to talk about this, I am going to talk about that, but listen. And then there's something somebody says, and you can go off and have a conversation about that. You know?
Who did you have on that you were like, holy shit, I'm actually talking to this person?
Oh, man.
Because this is kind of what it feels like now, me talking to you, to be perfectly honest. So this is like really going way back.
I always get asked this. No offense, but it's something I always draw blanks on. Like everybody from Tom Cruise to Colin Farrell has been on Celebrity Wise. Anyone who was ever an Irish celebrity was on the show. Probably one of the.
Who was the hardest? We'll go with your favorite, and then we go with the hardest. How about that?
Do you know what? Actually, let's go to that. Not necessarily the hardest, but at one point in the morning show, Live at the Marquee was coming up and was like, "Oh, Westlife, we're going to be announcing. They want to announce it on your show." So they were like, "Grand, we'll put on Shane Phelan. We'll come on."
Mm-hmm.
But I was convinced he was called Shane Phelan. So as soon as I introduced him, he corrected me instantly.
Oh no!
And I'm like going, "Oh, this isn't good."
Fuck yeah!
And I was like, "Okay, I'm just going to swim."
Yeah.
You know. And I kept calling him Phelan, or I kept calling him the wrong version of his name. To the fact that he was pissed off by the end of it. You know, I was like, okay, just sink or swim. Like, you know, some of the Irish musicians, I always remember being told at the time Paddy Casey was going to be a poor interview. He'll be on for like 2 seconds and he'll be gone. And Paddy came on for like 20 minutes, you know. So they're kind of, you know, they were kind of ones that you think are hard or not hard. You know, I suppose that the likes of John Voight and these guys that you're told, don't ask this, don't ask that, don't say this, you know, or any of the press junkets, you know, don't ask this, don't ask that, do not speak about this. And the thing is, if you did forget your 30 seconds of a soundbite, the studios would control the recording, so you wouldn't get the tape. So you could be sitting inside a room with you know, if you weren't just on at the time it was mini disc, but if you weren't on an audio recorder, the studios would set up a full film set where all the junkets are done and literally it's journalist after journalist is rolled in and out. But if there was something happened, they didn't have to give you the tape or the SD card.
So if you didn't play ball, they were like, we're keeping that, like.
Exactly. So if they said, don't ask about, you know, his cat, and you said, tell us about the cat there, Johnny, gone. That's it. And the fact that you wouldn't get the thing, you wouldn't get the video or the audio, you'd also be blacklisted.
So you'd never get invited to any of these things again.
You
Like,
never get invited again. And the only way you'd have some bit of clout is if you were national. If you're in the national press, where they'd probably have no choice but to give it to you. But a lot of the time, it was that. On radio, we used to get the "What are you going to ask?" You know, and we just don't do that.
yeah.
You know, and sometimes we lost guests, sometimes we didn't. You know, but it was kind of just one of those things. But favorite, like I suppose oh man, I actually don't know.
Look at the clock's ticking there. Look.
I'm trying to think. Like I really kind of cherish the interactions I had with Pat Short over the years, because Pat was just always
just
up for
fast,
like you know. A lot of the Irish crew were great. Like we used to, you know, we had Brian Dobson on when he was at the peak of all things 6-1 News, and we had just such good fun with him, and he was up for it. Like, you know, media people get it.
Yeah.
You know, but I suppose a lot of the celebs over the years, you know, the likes of Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Colin Farrell, probably one of the funnest interactions was with Michael Cera and Jason Schwartzman for Scott Pilgrim versus the World, where the junket was in Dublin, and I walked in. It was in the one of the big hotels there in Merrion Street, Merrion Square, and you just walk in. The studio rep brings you in, and they'll go, "This is Vic. This is Jason, blah, blah, blah." So they were like, "Oh, we don't know where Michael is." You know, and I'm like, "Okay, he's the star of the movie," but with the villain, Jason Schwartzman, there, and he was like, "Hey, how's it going?" Blah, blah, blah. And next thing, Michael Cera just burst out of a cupboard. He had climbed up into his cupboard. I'm like, "What the?" So that you know, and you're like, "What do we do here?"
Yeah.
Opportunity for a bit of divilment, or I'm just going to fold up and die. So the way it was set up, there was no chair for me, so I went on my knees, and they're like, "Why are you on your knees?" And they got down on their knees. And then we started talking about lubricant, as you do. They're plugging a movie. And then Michael Cera pulls out this bottle of Tabasco sauce out of his pocket as a lubricant. It was just one of these really fun kind of interactions that you
couldn't stage.
You couldn't stage. I remember literally the studio rep would stand outside the door with their stopwatch. You know, you get 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 12, 3, and they'd walk back in, and she'd walk back in, and there's the 2 stars of the movie on the ground with me, and there's like she just came and she goes, "I'm not even going to ask," and she goes, "Your time is up," and you know, it was just one of those bizarre things. I guess when I went on with the moviebit.com, which is a website I ran for a couple of years, that was my baby, and it's still there. Nothing happens it really anymore that much, but you know, interviewing the likes of Ed Catmull, who's one of the co-founders of Pixar. You know, the majority of the Pixar head honchos have come on the radio show over the years, and on the podcast are the likes of, you know, these gigantic film composers. The only ones that we never had was John Williams, you know. So all of those kind of guys. Probably the funnest one was Alan Silvestri, the guy who composed the music for Back to the Future. I remember telling him the story about driving the car at 88 miles an hour while listening to the Back to the Future theme.
Just in case it happened.
In case, you know, all of these kind of interactions. But to be honest with you, Terence, there has been, you know, so many. They all kind of just go into a blur. You know, but they're some of the favorite ones. I know we'll finish up and I'll be like, "Oh, I never told him about."
You can write a comment under, and I'll write back, and we can have a back and forth on that.
Like when Colin Farrell was in your neck of the woods with Neil Jordan for Ondine, was it his missus at the time was Elise Backlady, so she was in the movie. So I interviewed Colin, I interviewed Neil, and then I interviewed her, and it was my first proper junket. I had no idea how to be, you know, shake hands. Do you give them a hug? You just go in and keep your eyes down. What you do? I remember
hearing this story.
And the rep introduced me, and she's like, "Vic, this is Alicia," and I went to give her a hug and a kiss, and she was a bit like, "Okay," but she fell. I knocked her over. You know, it's just one of these most awkward things ever, and I could just feel the studio rep just going, "Jesus Christ!" It was just. I was like, "Okay, I'm never going to do that again." Oh. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. There were fun times, you know. how they kept me there, or how the studios kept me back and
Yeah,
forth.
I'm trying to think that. I'm trying to look at try to give some positive advice to kids, and look how things bad can go wrong and still keep a job.
I mean, like when I don't know, like you probably remember Gears of War on the Xbox.
I do.
We because I was big into the Xbox stuff at the time. We had a very good relationship with Microsoft built up, and we brought on Cliff Bleszinski, who was the chief designer with
Yeah, yeah.
Epic Games for Gears of War. And we brought him on for Gears of War 1, and then we brought him on for Gears of War 2. And I forget now what he said, but he said something, and the gaming community went absolute. I was like, why aren't they all? Because we put up the clip. It's like, where are all these lunatics coming from? And whatever he said, it was something controversial. And I was there at 4 a.m. dealing with him, a solicitor, a lawyer, and one of the bigwigs in Epic Games trying to diffuse this whole thing. And you're like, ah. And I don't even think it was that bad, but it was just, the way the keyboard
Yeah,
warriors
keyboard
back
warriors.
then,
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, no, it was all fun, man. It was all fun. We had some bizarre scenarios, but they were good. I'll always be grateful for the opportunity. I'll always be grateful for the interactions that I had. I suppose probably favorite guests of all time would have been Frank and Walters. They would have been up at the
Mm.
top because I know the lads very well. They'd always come in and they were always up for the banter. We 1 year we did there was actually some woman from Bandon who was making chocolate. She was a chocolatier, so we said we'd do a hot chocolate shot drinking contest. I don't ask. Makes great radio, right?
Yeah, because you'll be able to see that.
Yeah. So the lads come in and like none of them would partake in it except Rory, the guitarist. So they came in a couple of weeks later. We'd always do a Christmas week of shows where we bring in big guests. And Rory came in, I was fucking dying after. I was like, what happened to you? So they played a gig that night, and Rory was after going through it and how many gallons of this hot chocolate, like in shot glasses. And his stomach was absolutely, he nearly died on stage. Like he was destroyed, But we did an outside broadcast from the Opera Lane studio one Christmas, and we had Frank and Walters in. We had like Rachel Allen come in, Pat Shore, and it was just madness, but it was just good fun. I always remember we had the Lord Mayor in, and I never knew it, but like unless you're the Lord Mayor, you can't put the chains around your neck.
Change on. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was John Buttermer was the Lord Mayor at the time, and he came in, and I don't know, we tried to make it official, a big hullabaloo that he'd kick off this live outside. First time ever we're doing a talk show live outside the station. And he was like, "Oh, I brought in the chains. They're not the real ones, but they're the replica." And I was like, "All right, you give him." And I put them around my neck. So color just drained out of his face. Like he's like, "It goes. It's not on there." And it was just, it was all about having a bit of crack. It was all having about a bit of crack. And, yeah. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. People kind of always go, "Do you miss it?" I don't miss it. Radio can be a toxic environment. I miss the audience, but I guess I still have an audience. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it was just a part of my life that chapter is closed. I always get the, will you ever go back? No is the answer.
You're done with it.
It would take a substantial amount of money for me to go back. I'm talking stupid money, like, that would have to be delivered in 3 Lamborghinis tied onto a Learjet. Yeah, I've just moved on, and that's it.
That's cool.
I was offered a national gig after it, a couple of weeks after it finished. I won't say what station, but I turned it down because it was not worth my while getting out of bed, let alone driving to Dublin for this show. And I kind of figured, and they understood, but they were like, "But we're a national station." And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
then paying national station rates,
Yeah.
it was peanuts. And I kind of remember I was going to the press screening of one of the Avengers movies, and I went for breakfast with the radio station before that. I remember I walked out, and they were like, "Right, you'll be in touch." And I'm like, yeah. I says, "But I don't think it's going to happen." And they're like, "Look, sure, think about it anyway." And I was like, "That's it." And I remember ringing my missus at the time. I was like, "That's it. It's over." She's like, "To me, I says, radio's done." When you'd walk away from some, like, obviously the the goal for any radio presenter is to go
National.
national
Mm-hmm.
or go to the UK or just obviously you get a bigger audience. And when you kind of turn that down, you're like, that's it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's no more, you know. And that was kind of a compounding moment, you know, saying no to that. Because it still fed the ego. You were still in the limelight. You were still, you know, and I suppose the way you kind of people always say, well, how do you describe it? Like, you know, the Superman movie where he loses his powers. That's kind of what it feels like, because you know you do come down off of a high, and it was a bit of a struggle, you know, at times, but it was just one of those things that was it, you know. My time was done anyway. You know, I was looking at other things at the time. So I suppose in one sense it was a blessing in disguise, probably accelerated other things. And maybe if it didn't happen when it did, we wouldn't be having this conversation now, or I wouldn't be where I am now, you know.
But at least you
So
had closure. And sometimes that's the hardest thing, because then you don't go, what if?
yeah, you know, I'm
You know?
very grateful for the radio station for going, yeah, okay, we'll give you a last show, because you don't get a last show on radio. Because you're walking liability to say whatever and
do anything.
You're like, did he put up the dump button? You know, is the delay on? you just don't get it, because there's a day you turn on the radio and your favorite presenter isn't there anymore.
It's gone. Yeah,
they're gone. You know, if they're retiring, yeah, they'll get a last show or whatever. You know, or in Jerry Ryan's case, you get a tribute that went on for a weekend. In my case, it was one of the very few presenters anywhere to get that opportunity as a last show. And you know, regardless of any opinion I'd have of people or the media, like I feel grateful for that opportunity to say goodbye to an audience. You know,
yeah, I remember it.
You know, and that was it, and that was a kind of a hard night. You know, to come home and drive back. I didn't finish in the radio station there and then. I still did work for them for a bit after, but that was probably my last time physically in there. And like I remember actually probably one of my favorite celebrity interviews was with Kevin Smith. And he messaged me that night because Facebook and stuff was just blowing up. And I came home and I sat for a couple of hours just reading, and he just messaged me out of the blue, and I'm like, okay, geez, this is really coming up everywhere, you know. And that was it, you know. And it took 6 months of doing different things, but I always felt that something was going to come into place. It wasn't like it was sitting there, what's going to happen. But you have to believe that something is going to turn up. And I remember saying to my wife, I'm going, something will turn up. She's like, you've walked away from the national radio gig. What's going to turn up? You know? And that's when, you know, I'm a big believer that a lot of things are meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, I've been lucky enough to be with Teamwork since their early-ish days when there was like 15 of us. It's now a company over 250 people. So I've been, you know, a part of that journey. So I don't think it would have been a part, you know, if things had gone another way. But you never say, what if I did this, if I didn't do that, if I said that, if I blah, 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 if I turned up to all those opening of envelopes that I should have turned up to, but I didn't because I don't buy into that BS, then we'd have a different story, you know. And it was just one of those things. But I'm grateful for the opportunity, you know, grateful that we had an impact on people, because it wasn't just me. I mean, there was a team there, different producers and teams over the years. But that was it, you know. Yeah, it was sad. It was a hard drive home from Bishopstown that night. Like anybody leaving any job, you know, it was a job I gave a big deal about, gave a crap about the audience and what we brought to them, you know, and that was it. It was just one of those things. And yeah, sure, we got on, and new merch line coming next week. You know?
BMW thumbs up in the back.
Yeah, but yeah, you know, so like anything, when you do something for so long, you get attached to it.
Yeah.
And
it becomes your baby.
It, you know? Yeah,
but it's not like you grew that. You know, you started from nothing. You started with a seed to grow into an oak tree. And
yeah,
I feel like, in my opinion, like my opinions were fuck all, really, especially to you. But it's, you built it into the oak tree. That was your pyramid. Do you know what I mean? Like, Cork Talks Back. You don't associate Cork Talks Back with anybody else.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
And I understand. I'm not trying to kiss your ass or anything like that, but like, it's genuinely, and I appreciate you coming on to this show or whatever it is. Like I said, it's coming from my attic. It's like a pirate radio station back in the day. But you were the voice of nighttime radio for me growing up.
Yeah.
I'm 32.
Thanks,
do you know what I mean? So I grew up listening to you. Do you know, I used to always wonder why you didn't do Thursdays and Fridays, but I was like, yeah, do you know what? He has to take a night off every now and again too. Do you know?
Yeah, like my weekend was like a Friday and a Saturday was my weekend, which was always bizarre. You'd wake up over Friday morning going, I'm off today. This is my Saturday. Friday was my Saturday, you know.
Oh yeah, it was Friday and Saturday. You used to do a Sunday night
Yeah,
show
yeah.
then, wasn't it? Yeah.
My
My claim to fame is you did read one of my texts out all them years ago.
Hey man, there you go. See, that's what it's all about.
I can't remember. It was something about cops at the time. We were speeding or something like that. And at the time, Bantry had just sort of become a West Cork big station. And they were just flooding it with cops one time. And I remember one of your listeners got on and said, there's not a cop around the place without they're speeding these kids in their fucking cars and their big load exhausts. And everyone was saying there was no guards. And I remember texting in saying, Vic, there's plenty of guards down here in Bantry. And you just said, well, that's an opinion no one really wants. And I was like, what's sound?
Fair enough. That was the other thing, man. Like the mental health and those boy racers, and we really worked very hard at trying to distinguish the car enthusiasts and the
versus the boy
racers.
racers. Yes,
Do you know what I mean? Because that was a pain point for me, and I wasn't really aware, but you learn it fairly quickly, and I was like, okay, these guys are not doing the dog on the road because you know their tires are worth $3,000. They don't want to melt them down. They're putting every single bob into their car. These aren't the ones that are the problem. However, they're the ones that got the bad name.
Yeah.
Because Johnny and Spider bought a 91 Corolla and drilled a hole in the exhaust and drove the crap out of it.
Yeah.
You know, and
just waking up the deaf neighbors along the road, like
they were the problem, you know. So you'd appreciate the culture and what it did, but also the other fellas who were trying to partake just ruined it for everybody. You know?
Posers.
Yeah. You
posers.
know, but that was always the big thing. There's a big difference between the enthusiasts and the boy racers. Totally different, like, you know.
Well, look, we're going to wrap it up because we just did nearly 2.5 hours, man. For a segment,
I was going for the Post Malone 4 hours in Joe Rogan.
Did you listen to that? Did you listen to that one? That's a great podcast. It's a great podcast. It really is good. Yeah, no, genuinely, because I was like, fucking 4 hours. What could they? But they're both absolutely off their game. They really are. It is quite a good podcast. It's very funny because they end up repeating themselves and like you completely know they're stoned off their head on mushrooms, like, and like they leave for like 10 minutes and don't come back. And it's like, but you're not even edited that, like, and then they come in and they go, oh yeah, do you know, we forgot we were doing this. And it's like, Do you know, like just even take that little snippet where there's nothing. There's literally nothing. Yeah. I had to check my iPhone 2 or 3 times to make sure I was still listening to it. And then you hear like Joe Rogan cough or something in the background, and you just go, and you go, all right, they're back on live. Like, you know, like, just pause the fucking record button. Like, you know what I mean? And then come back into it. But it'd be interesting. And there's something actually. This is a question for you. You might know, but I don't know whether he's bored or what. But Joe Rogan is uploading a brand new podcast every single day, and there has to be something there because. Whether it's just the fact that he's not traveling or he's not doing stand-up or whatever, but he's doing one every single day for the last sort of 2 weeks. And maybe it's his goodbye to YouTube or wherever he's on, and he's just going to dump a load of content onto it and then head over to Spotify. I don't know. There's something like I would imagine he'd have to ask his guests to come up and set them up. He's not just ringing, like he's not ringing last night, Vic, you coming on the show tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Like he's a big name guest. Like you don't just ring up Post Malone saying you're coming over tomorrow night. For some magic mushrooms and let's have a fucking 4-hour conversation.
Do you know what I think? When you're at Rogan's level, you could probably do that. Not for everybody, but you could probably do that.
Yeah, possibly.
You could probably do that. Is there enough to do it like 5, 6, 7 days a week? I don't know.
That's what he's doing, man. He's pumping out 6 a week, like. And they're long conversations.
He's probably trying to impress the Spotify lads that he put in the grind for the 100 million, you know.
Yeah, that was some deal. 100 million. And you see how much they made off it then just off the sale? There's another fella there. Oh, I can't think of his name now. Value Entertainment.
Okay.
He did the breakdown on it. And like it cost them 100 million to sign him. And in the space of like 3 or 4 days, they had made nearly $500 million or something off it. So it was just that sponsorship just came straight over. And they're launching their new podcast thing where they're doing video as well.
Yeah.
So like there may be a challenge for YouTube very, very soon. Like, and it is scaringly. It's scary that no one has challenged YouTube. I suppose they've had the run of the things and they've had the run of everything for so long that maybe they just got so big that no one could challenge them.
Yeah,
I'm not quite
it's
sure, but Spotify are coming to the game. Like they're coming to the field to play. And
yeah. I mean,
especially,
it's a tough one with the YouTube thing. Do you know what I mean? Like when people think of social media, it's Facebook or Twitter, maybe Instagram. You know, so there's always a couple of, you know, how many people upload videos to Vimeo. If you're a pro, that's where if you want to stream your content, that's the best possible place because it uses less compression than YouTube, and it gives you the ability to download directly from the video, or you can replace the video. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. Like the YouTube platform has changed so many times over the last while. You know, between, you know, the clampdown, the kid stuff, the advertising, all of that, it's changed hugely. But it's just one of those things, you know. I'm pretty sure they're still on the never stop learning mode as well.
That's it. Should have signed Joe Rogan, huh?
Yeah, man. It's funny that they didn't make a play for him in some capacity, because YouTube have YouTube Red and YouTube Originals, and they've done a lot of series with PewDiePie, the series, Liza Koshy, the series. You know, there's dedicated series that they throw a lot of money at, because they're making God knows how much back out of it, you know. So it's just one of those things, you know.
But it comes to the other side of it. Then Rogan wanted to make his own rules, and I like even there you hear him talking. He's like, "Oh, I can't play that, or I can't show you that because YouTube will shut us down. I already have 2 strikes." And like, to be honest, if you have a star like Joe Rogan, provided he doesn't commit murder online, you kind of go, "Here, lad, go for it." Like,
yeah, I mean, it's when Stern went to satellite radio, you know.
Yeah.
I think at the time that was another $100 million deal, and that's going back a good couple of years. And
you wouldn't get a radio station like his no more, anyway.
No, none.
Some of the stuff that he did over the years.
It was just one of those things that, like, what he's doing on satellite now is completely unserious and stuff, and it's insane.
Yeah,
you know. But it just goes to show that there's always room, I guess, but it's depending if there's a company can, you know, put in the back end to handle that kind of bandwidth and data that YouTube is getting bombarded with hundreds of millions of hours of video every single day. That amount of content, you know. I mean, if YouTube doesn't come back and look for John Connors in the next couple of years, I don't know, man. It's crazy. There's an insane amount of data goes in there. So for anybody going, I'm going to come up with a video hosting platform, good luck to you, because you're going to need some infrastructure. Either you're going to use Amazon servers, or you're going to use Google servers.
That's what this uses. This is StreamYard uses Google servers.
Yeah.
And that's why it doesn't take up much bandwidth on either side. So like you 9 times out of 10 you get a stream with no problems, which is fairly good. But like halfway through we had problems. But yeah, no, it's like you get so big, you know. Like who really would have turned around and 2 years ago said, right, Spotify is going to make a play for Joe Rogan, and YouTube aren't even, like, they're going to be making so much money they're not even going to care that he's going.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, who fucking made that decision? Like, hang on a second there. Joe's going and we're not going to make a play for him because we can make so much more money elsewhere.
Yeah. Like, I think he's probably a drop in the ocean.
Yeah, but that's even scarier.
Because there's always the next Joe Rogan coming up on YouTube.
I don't think so, man. I think there's a big step. Like, there's not too many people that I would actually watch or listen to online that often.
I suppose, how long is Rogan on that platform? Is it 11 years?
11 years now, yeah.
So, I mean, like, that's the thing. That's the grind.
Who was your man up in Canada again? The Canadian guy. When sort of the internet first, he made like a reality TV star. Tom Green.
Oh, Tom Green, yeah. Freddie got fingered. That amazing movie. Yeah.
Yeah, like he says his biggest mistake was not going onto YouTube. Joe Rogan was one of the first onto it. He thought that he needed all the views on him and not just put it out there. And Joe found a way. Like, it's a great podcast if you get onto him. And hopefully Joe's paying us a bit of subsidies here for talking about him and advertising. He does a great one with Tom Green where he's like, man, we used to have, like, my whole house was like dug up and we had to have like cables and cameras and everything. Like, his whole house was a film studio. And Joe just said, fuck it, I'll get a camera and just do it somewhere else and not have any of the hassle. Do you know what I mean? Like, and he said he made that switch. And he does a great one about that cat. Oh man, I shouldn't be doing podcasts late at night anymore because my brain is just going to mush. This is what happens when I don't work for a very long time. I just go. Cat, the tattoo artist there when America Inc. first came
Oh,
out. Cat,
jeepers.
no, it'll come to me. But the female tattoo artist, it's going to be
I
someone.
know
online.
exactly. Kat Von D, wasn't it?
Kat Von D, yeah. Kat Von D came onto his show, and he didn't realize that he had to pay for the bandwidth, and he got a bill for $150,000 for having her on it because she was just coming onto Facebook and she told everyone to jump onto his live link or whatever he was doing it off, and yeah, like nearly 200,000 worth of a bill from his internet provider because he draws so much traffic and so much bandwidth onto his page. So yeah, things have changed. So
Yeah,
just like
when I had the Movie Bit podcast a couple of years ago, we had one interview with Rami Malek of all people, who won the Oscar there a couple of years ago, and I got an invoice in the door for 27,000 because we were hosting the podcasts on an Irish hosting company. So I didn't have the 27 grand to pay, so I think we settled on something far less. But it's just one of those things now where Google does the heavy lifting, or Amazon, the AWS service, they do the heavy lifting. They're designed for it. So yeah, by all means, if someone wants to set up their own platform, bring it on. You know, I think TikTok had a pretty good go at it. I know they're in the news for all the wrong reasons, but they had a pretty good go at it, and they found it a little bit easier to be discoverable. But depending on what subreddit you read, there's all kinds of different things about it.
Supposedly Microsoft are buying them too to make them an American company so they don't lose.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens with that, you know, over the next. I went down the TikTok hole for a while, and then I just came off of it because, again, I'm like, okay, there's too many idiots here. Right, gone. not good for my brain.
Vic, we're going to let you go, brother. Like 2.5 hours, man. I said 40 minutes, even 10 minutes. If when I first got in contact with you, if it lasted 10 minutes, I was pretty happy. But that was the story of my life. Sometimes I last forever. Sometimes I last for 3 minutes. It just happens.
Let's be honest. It's always 3 minutes, turn.
Well, yeah, it is. And that's time for cuddles as well. All right, my brother. It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much. We must do our 30 seconds rapid fire questions, right? So this is the bit we do all with all of our guests. So hopefully when I get a bit better at iMovie or any of the other highly intellectual computer stuff, that I might make it a bit better, a bit fancy. I can do a montage at the end of the year of everybody answering one question, but I probably won't be able to do that because it takes me like 4 weeks to do one video. And I keep it very, very simple, and it still takes me 4 weeks. So here we go. Hold on. We're nearly up to, you've got 30 seconds, so you got to be fast with these questions, right? In 3, 2, 1, phone call or text message?
Text.
Favorite movie of all time?
Star Wars.
So you have to pick which one. First
Empire
one?
Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back.
McDonald's or Burger King?
McDonald's.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
10.
Strangest place you've made a phone call or sent a text?
The middle of the desert in Abu Dhabi.
A person who you'd like to have dinner with, dead or alive?
Probably my grandparents.
This is the most controversial question. Ketchup in the fridge or outside the fridge?
In the fridge. In the fridge.
Been on your podcast on this
what's wrong with you in Bantry? Who keeps ketchup outside of the fridge?
You answered that question already.
Hang on, let me guess. You put the chocolate in the fridge as well, do you?
No, I don't put chocolate in the fridge.
Good man, keep it out. Ketchup in the fridge though, always.
Ketchup, no, I was the other side. Chef ketchup or Heinz ketchup?
Heinz.
Oh God. I thought we
actually here we shifted to the Aldi ketchup as well to save a few bob. The Aldi ketchup is really good.
Would you like to live forever or have the power of invisibility?
Power of invisibility.
Do you eat soup or drink it?
You eat soup.
And what is the one thing that annoys you the most in the world, Mr. Victor Barry?
This has probably gone beyond the 30 seconds. One thing that annoys me more in the world, idiots.
Idiots.
Just general idiots. Just idiots. Self-righteous, pretentious, self-serving, may-feigning mother idiot.
I'll let you swear one time if you want before we wrap it up.
Oh no, it's good. I made it this far. I'll just go into the toilet now and lock the door and swear continuously for the next 10 minutes.
Vic, it's been a pleasure, buddy. Thank you so, so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. Mind yourself. Say hello to everybody up there, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Terrence.
Awesome, brother. Bye bye.